Game of Thrones escape game. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Bronn. Ian slept for 14 hours. When he woke up the next morning, he felt sore all over and dizzy. He had another nightmare last night. This time the dream was very long, but most of the content was forgotten in the few seconds. After he opened his eyes, he only remembered the last scene of the dream. He was standing in front of a mirror. There was a monster in the mirror, shivering, shaking his head to get rid of these outrageous scenes. Ian closed his eyes and logged into the system to check the daily settlement report updated at midnight yesterday. The third day settlement report. The current number of remaining players: 96 in the first 3 days. A total of 4 players were eliminated, and 3 of them fell into my hands. You are really unlucky to meet me, Ian muttered softly, and then looked through the other contents in the system. After confirming that the main quest and bounty quest had not been updated, he officially got up and called Deluoa in the outer room and Keith, who had just returned, to have dinner together. After confirming with Jenny that no one in the hall was using long-range weapons, Ian walked into the hall. This time, Ian's breakfast was much more normal than before, consisting of a portion of bacon, 2 fried eggs and a pork pie. As for drinks, thank God, Ian, who had taken control of the inn, finally didn't have to endure the morning beer as stiffly as before. He asked Martha to mix a cup of honey with boiled water for him. Just as he was about to eat, Ian suddenly heard the sound of a pre-meal prayer from the caravan at the next table. According to Jenny, the caravan arrived at the inn last night. There were 14 people in total, including a leader, 3 guards and 10 civilians. It was not easy for Ian to eat alone when such a large group of people started praying, so he pretended to join the prayer. May the Heavenly Father judge us mercifully and forgive our human fragility. May the Virgin Mary have mercy on us and keep us away from disasters. May the warrior give us strength and courage to defeat all enemies. May the girl open her legs to relieve our fatigue on the journey. A discordant voice suddenly appeared, interrupting the sacred prayer. Ian couldn't help but look at the source of the voice. The one who spoke was a mercenary who had just entered the room. He was wearing a dirty military uniform that looked like it had never been washed. He had black eyes and black hair, and a messy stubble. He looked a little thin. The companion behind him was wearing a chainmail with holes in it, which he didn't know whether it was pulled from the corpse of an opponent or a family heirloom that had been passed down for generations. The 2 men were exhausted and swaggered to a large table and sat down as soon as they entered the room. One of them even stopped a waitress beside him and touched her all over. That's a good player. Deluoa stared at the mercenary who had just entered the room and whispered to Ian, "How did you tell?" "Experience and intuition. I can feel the breath on him, as cunning as a fox and as fierce as a wolf." Deluoa's expression was a little alert, as if in his eyes, the mercenary could pose a threat even to him. "Have you been a coach before?" Ian suddenly remembered the data of senior coach in Deluoa's profile card. "I led recruits in me during the war between the 3 sister cities in the disputed lands," Deluoa admitted. "You can train me when you have time," Ian said. In theory, Ian, who has already mastered the swordsmanship to a high level, is now a good player, but judging from his previous actual combat performance, Ian really can't believe the data on the page. "Then when are you free?" "Anytime." Ian stopped halfway because he found that, although he was free, this place was not suitable for training. It is definitely impossible to train in such a small space in the room, and if he trains in the yard outside, won't everyone see that Sir Lucien Lannister is a 3-legged cat? He is now a serious leader here, the kind of person who is full of power, so it is better not to easily expose his own poor strength. Ian was thinking, and suddenly saw the boss's wife Martha, who had finished her work in the kitchen, walked up to the mercenary just now and scolded him. "Bronn, you rogue. And you, Chijan, when did you pay for the last drink?" "Bronn. That guy is Bronn." Ian realized at this moment that his appearance and temperament are indeed very consistent with the description of Bronn in the original book. It's just that Bronn in the TV series left a deep impression on him, so he didn't associate this mercenary with him at first. The next moment Ian had an idea to recruit him. That guy's a rare talent. He can do everything from guarding, fighting, coaching, assassination, and investigation. In the TV version, he even dared to use the dragon hunting crossbow to snipe at it in the middle door when he was discovered by Drogon. In short, as long as you can afford it, it is the best sword, not the kind that mercenaries brag about, but the best sword in the true sense. Looking at the entire world of ice and fire, there is no sword that is stronger than him and has more functions than him. However, before getting up hastily, Ian once again observed the people in the inn. If there are players inside, maybe the other party will have the same idea as himself, so as long as someone goes to rescue Bronn and try to hire him, he can immediately have someone take him down. However, Ian looked around and did not find any suspicious characters. So Ian first gave instructions to Roll and Keith, and then stood up to recruit Bronn. In this way, even if there were really hidden players in the inn, when the opponent attacked him, Roll and his team would be able to take him down in the first place. Just as Martha was cursing, Ian directly pressed a silver deer on the table in front of Bronn, and smiled at Martha. I paid for him. This is a rogue. Martha didn't know why Ian was interested in such a guy, so she reminded him in a low voice. You can't find a more rogue guy than him. Ian echoed Martha in his heart. May the gods bless you, my good lord. Bronn ignored the proprietress Martha. He raised the wine glass with one hand and pulled the prostitute beside him to his legs with the other hand. But you may have been cheated. 1 silver deer is the price of a virgin, just like this. He smiled at Ian with a hint of sarcasm in his tone. When Bronn said the last sentence, he flirted with the little girl who was only 8 or 9 years old who was pouring wine next to him, scaring the little girl back away, and then the whole tavern burst into laughter. But I'm happy to pay a higher price for what I like. Ian took out a gold dragon casually. For example, if you are willing to serve me, it will be yours. The laughter that filled the entire tavern stopped abruptly. Chapter 50 to the unlucky Derry family. Have you ever seen a servant as old as us? Bronn muttered immediately. I would rather starve to death than give you these. This is just a deposit. Your reward is 1 gold royal per week. Ian ignored him and spoke to himself. He didn't set the price too outrageous because that would arouse suspicion. Anyway, this price was already overestimated for Bronn at the moment. Point arrogant knights feed horses, shovel manure or take off your damn boots. What did you just say? 1 gold dragon a week. Oh, by the 7 gods, I love feeding horses the most. Bronn made an exaggerated expression. I was at my grandfather's house when I was a child. I'm not interested in your childhood stories. Oh, then what are you interested in? Do you need me to kiss your anus? I see you smile like a daisy. I need you to feed my horse well, and if necessary, I want you to cut the throat of my enemy. A fair deal. Believe me, even if a stranger is your enemy, I will stab his ash with a dagger. Stop, stop, stop. Don't say that word in front of me again. Ian interrupted Bronn hurriedly. As you wish. Sir, I can also feed the horses. Seeing Ian finally stop, Chijen quickly interrupted. I don't need the same high salary as him. I hope you can hire me as well. Ian wanted to return what Bronn had just said on the spot. Have you ever seen a damn servant as old as you? I recruited Bronn not because of Bronn's ability to feed horses, but because of Bronn's sword. What do you have, Chijen? But he thought about it and realized that he really needed someone to be responsible for feeding the horses, so he nodded and said, your salary is only 30 silver deer per week, and it will double if you are involved in a battle. Do you have any objections? No, sir. Chijen frowned, but still accepted the price. 30 silver deer per week is the price of a normal combat mercenary, and he only needs to do some odd jobs. If he fights, he can get 60 silver deer, which is already a great job. As for being jealous of Bronn, people will only be jealous of those who are a little stronger than themselves, or weaker than themselves, but just have good luck. It is impossible for him to be jealous of a guy like Bronn who can beat 3 or 5 of them at the same time. Moreover, he knows very well that he can be this attendant because of Bronn. After seeing Chijen's commission, the mercenaries around Denzel also retracted their gazes and secretly rejoiced, because although their remuneration was not as good as that old bastard Bronn, it was much higher than Chijen. Like Chijen, They were not jealous of Bronn. They were all mercenaries of this generation, and they knew Bronn's ability. So, Bronn hugged his prostitute. Shall we talk about it later? This early in the morning? Mornings are the best. Bronn kissed the woman on the face and replied with a smile. Did you forget that you are my attendant? But you invited me. Did you forget? This should be part of the agreement. Bronn defended on the spot. Okay, Ian laughed, and he turned to Kidjon. You go too, man. This is part of the agreement. Kidjon hesitated, bowed to Ian, and also went upstairs with a woman. After sending the two away, Ian returned to the table. Luo shook his head at him, indicating that he did not notice that anyone's expression was unusual when Ian recruited Bronn just now. Just stay alert. By the way, Ian looked at Keith. Why did it take you so long to buy weapons? Keith glanced at Ian and did not answer, which made Ian frown. What's the matter with this guy? In view of Keith's active execution of his orders, Ian did not doubt his loyalty. But from the time he came to his side until now, Ian had not heard Keith say a word. Is he aphasic? Keith, he can't speak. Luo explained for him. Sure enough, Ian thought to himself. Keith was the first warrior in our group to complete the training. Somehow, Luo suddenly talked about Keith's past. Ian had no objection. Although the two knights were religious warriors trained by the organizer, they were free to go after the training, so their experiences would undoubtedly enrich Ian's understanding of the world. When he was young, he traveled all over Essos. Roll continued to introduce. He won the championship in the Grand Arena in Meereen, defeated a water dancer master in Bravos 1-on-1, and killed a pirate king in the Stone Archipelago. Damn. Can we only say that it is worthy of the extremely limited resources provided by the system to players that need to fight for with all their strength? But these are not the achievements that Kaz is most proud of. Roll then shook his head mysteriously. So, what is his proudest achievement? After that, with the wealth brought by adventure, he lived a wealthy life in Rhys for a period of time, and became a frequent visitor to the houses of the trade princes in Rhys. Luo did not rush to answer, but continued to tell his story. There, he used his ability to use the sword below, which made his own ability to use the sword in his hand feel ashamed, to wear hats on 4 trade princes of Rhys at once. And he even claimed to be able to use his tongue. Keith suddenly looked up at Luo, which scared Luo, so he hastily ended the story. In short, later he injured his tongue for some reason, and then he couldn't speak. Ian did not see Keith's eyes warning Luo, but he found a clue from Luo's expression, so he did not ask any more questions. However, he silently turned Rhys into a restricted area in his heart, and vowed never to step into it again. After glaring at Rawl, Keith stood up and left. After a while, he brought back the Dornishman Denzel's mercenary who went with him to buy equipment. Sir, you looking for me? Sit down. Ian raised his chin. What's your name? They all call me Wet Maggie. Maggie said as she sat down in front of Ian. I must apologize again for saying that Denzel's nickname Spike was not cool. It took you 2 days to buy the weapons. Even if you went to Hirenal instead of the nearest Derry, it shouldn't have taken so long. Oh, sir, we went to Derry first, but found that the equipment sold in Derry was only some defective products, and there was no horse to sell. So we had to go to Hirenal again, and we bought everything we wanted there. Maggie explained. It seems that Derry was suppressed far more thoroughly than Hirenal. Ian couldn't help but think. Not only did they lose their fiefdoms, titles, and wealth, they couldn't even sell the old military equipment they had stored. Of course, it couldn't be blamed on the Iron Throne for hitting them hard. After all, 3 of Ser Raymond Derry's brothers died on the battlefield for Aegon Targaryen, and the 4th brother took Viserys and Daenerys to the other side of the Narrow Sea. The Targaryens were full of loyalists, who would be the new ruler without having to be on guard against him. Okay, I'm fine. Ian waved his hand and motioned for Maggie to leave. After waiting in the hall for a long time, Ian finally saw Bronn and Kidjon go downstairs together. You two have such a good chemistry. Ian couldn't help but sigh. He's been waiting for me for a long time. The 2 mercenaries answered in unison, looked at each other, and then laughed. Well, now that the agreement has been reached, it's time for you to get to work. I will serve you wholeheartedly, my lord. Bronn bowed in an extremely exaggerated and funny posture. Me too. Kidjon also said hurriedly. Very good. Now go check the horses. We are ready to go. Ian ordered Bronn. I'm sorry to bother you. We don't have horses. I will provide you with, of course, better armor and weapons in addition to horses. Ian looked back at Kez. I will temporarily leave the cavalry under Sir Grantham at the Black Falcon Mercenary Castle and find a chainmail shirt suitable for Bronn from there. Chijen doesn't need to be, Ian added in his heart, and then turned to Bronn. By the way, you are too close to the original book now. It would be bad if you accidentally attract other players outside. You go shave your beard, trim your hair, take a bath, and change into a cleaner set of clothes. This Bronn was about to refute. This is another price. Ian interrupted him and handed a gold dragon directly to him. You are such a particular lord. Bronn put the golden dragon into his pocket and left with a smile. Then Ian looked at Chijen. I'll go and pack it up now. Chijen bowed quickly. He knew that the employer came for Bronn and he was just a byproduct, so he didn't mention any extra money at all and turned around to catch up with Bronn. After a while, when the two came out again, they were much cleaner and fresher, and their clothes were changed into new shirts, provided by Martha P.S. The modal particle starting with F in the common language of Westeros is translated as GM, and damn in this article according to the context. Chapter 53, Local Leader Wilder, Part 1. Led by a young servant, Ian and his party entered the castle hall of the Ward family, which was built with wood and adobe, which was even more shabby than the Black Falcon Mercenary Castle. Welcome, Sir Luckian Lannister. Before entering the castle, Ian asked Jenny Hyde, the niece of Martha, the proprietress of the Crossroads Inn, to come in and report, so the owner of the castle had already known his identity as Sir Luckian in advance. I'm Sir Wilder of the Reg family. But the first person to speak was not the owner of the castle, but Sir Wilder, the local knight leader who was said to have seen the three-headed black dragon emblem on the robber. He was a slightly older knight with a grey beard, but his body looked as strong as a young man in his 20s. Just by looking at him, Ian knew that this person should not be underestimated. After Sir Wilder finished introducing himself, he pointed to the tough middle-aged man beside him and said, "He is Sir Willie Ward, the master of this castle." Willie Ward looked at Ian's gaze and nodded slightly stiffly without saying much. Just as cold as in the original book, Ian complained in his heart, "Nice to meet you." Because Jenny had already informed her of her name, Ian skipped the introduction and just introduced the other servants. "These two are Old Dog and he pointed at Roland Keith. "They are both civilians in the West, and they are my squires. And the two outside are my squires' squires." This naturally refers to Bronn and Chijen. Hiss. As soon as Ian finished speaking, he heard the sound of the two knights in front of him taking a breath. "I guess Jenny has already told you the purpose of my trip?" Ian asked straight to the point without leaving time for the other party to be amazed. "Of course, sir." Sir Wilder's attitude was enthusiastic, but his words did not seem so welcoming. "But you may have come in vain, because our operation has ended." Ian had asked Jenny to come in to inform him that he came to help, because he heard about their recruiting knights from other places within a week. So Sir Wilder began to explain. As soon as they met, Ian looked around. There were indeed only Sir Wilder and Sir Willie in the hall. Just now in Willie Ward's manor, he did not see any signs of military gathering except for the two knights' attendants and less than 20 guards. This made Sir Wilder's statement particularly convincing, but if they had any large-scale operations, how could he not get any news at all? "So what operation did you carry out?" Ian chose to ask Sir Wilder directly. "Sorry, this involves a secrets." Wilder shook his head and refused to answer. "Secret?" Ian narrowed his eyes. "You made me go on this trip for nothing, and you don't even want to give me an explanation?" Ian was furious with the arrogance that a Lannister of his age should have on his face. "Can I regard this as an insult to me?" Sir Wilder frowned at this. "Damn, how could I have provoked such a dandy boy?" Just as he was thinking about how to fool Sir Lucien, Ian spoke again. "I've heard about it before. A bandit group called Whitewall Ghosts appeared nearby. They are looking for a treasure for the restoration of the country left by the former Earl of Whitewall for the descendants of Blackfire." Ian stiffened his neck, with an angry expression on his flushed face. "I originally thought that, since you have been looking for it for so long, I might as well cooperate with you, but you dared to humiliate me." "We didn't, Sir Lucien. It was several days ago that I made the request to Martha, and the operation was already over today. How can this be considered that we are playing a trick on you? Sir Wilder pulled the corner of his mouth, resisting the urge to blast the other party out, and explained patiently. Since you don't welcome me, I can only go to Harrenhal to deliver a letter to King's Landing. Ian and Wilder said, it will take less than a day for the Raven to deliver my letter to Uncle Jaime in King's Landing. 5 days later, the elite of the Lannister family will arrive here. If you can't find the so-called Blackfire treasure during this period, this treasure will have nothing to do with you. Sir Wilder's face darkened in an instant. Wait, sir. Wilder saw Ian turning around and hurriedly stopped him. I'm sorry that we misunderstood your idea at first. The operation that I asked Martha to help find someone has indeed ended, but if you want to join our alliance to find the Blackfire treasure, we are very welcome. Oh. Ian stopped and turned around. Then how much can I get? If we finally get the Blackfire treasure, you will get 1 or 2% of the proceeds. Wilder gritted his teeth and directly said a bottom line number. This is blackmail. Sir Willie looked at the alliance leader beside him in shock. When we cooperated with the Black Falcon mercenaries before, we only offered them 50%, but they have 200 people. This guy wants 20% for 5 people. Sir Willie's temper has always been bad. In order to avoid him offending people, Sir Wilder deliberately told him to talk less, and he has always done so, but this time he really couldn't stand it. Sir Wilder shook his head slightly at Sir Willie, and then forced a smile to Ian. As you can see, this is the biggest concession we can make. 20% of the profit. If I report it to the family, I'm afraid the most I can get will not exceed this number. Ian nodded with satisfaction. This made Sir Wilder breathe a sigh of relief, but Ian's next sentence instantly made him raise his breath again. But sir, you are not honest with me. I'm not happy. What do you mean? Sir Wilder forced a smile again. If I'm right, the operation you asked Martha to help you find foreign knights to participate in has not actually started, right? Moreover, this operation has already involved the key clues to the treasure. Why do you think so? Wilder couldn't even force a fake smile. Because of your attitude. My attitude? The Blackfire treasure is not a secret in this generation. All the mercenaries around here know it. When I asked you what exactly you wanted to do in this operation of recruiting foreign knights, you told me that it was a secret. If that operation did not involve the key clues to finding the treasure, you should not have any need to keep it secret, right? This Sir Wilder swallowed. This is too far-fetched, right? Chapter 54, Local Leader Wilder, Part 2. So I conducted a test later. Ian replied with a smile. Test? As I said before, the Blackfire treasure is not a secret in this generation, but so far the Iron Throne and any of the big families have not sent anyone here. Why? This is because the existence of the Blackfire treasure is still just a guess. No one has found a definite clue or evidence to convince those big wigs to believe this absurd thing. Similarly, I don't have any. So what I said before about reporting to the Lannister family should be more like a joke in your eyes. Even if I really find someone, they will just come for a look and go back naturally after finding nothing. Facing my threat, you should not pay any attention to it. If you just don't want to cause trouble, then you can only offer me a comforting price. But your reaction is exactly the opposite. You offered a high price of 20%, which shows that you are very eager to reach an agreement. In other words, you are very worried that the Lannister family will send someone. This can only mean one thing. You have found the key clues, and you don't want anyone to mess with you at this time. Monster. Wilder and Willie looked at each other. Willie was standing in the hall of his own house, but he felt a little restrained for some reason. This in turn explains why you told me that the operation was over after hearing my last name. You didn't want the Lannisters to participate in your operation. You were afraid that I would report the key clues to the family, which would make your efforts in vain. Ian continued, so although you agreed to let me join the alliance now, you didn't plan to let me participate in the next operation. You just wanted to stabilize me first. As for my share, your share will definitely be given to you, Sir Lucien. No matter what, we dare not play tricks on the Lannisters on this issue. Wilder hurriedly explained to this young knight who was only the size of his grandson. He found that he was inexplicably afraid of him at this moment. But I cannot accept this plan. Ian shook his head. You want me to do nothing but get 20% of the profit. This is blackmail. This is not my style. I must participate in your operation. In the original book, Sir Willie Ward still looked poor when Catelyn kidnapped Tyrion. This shows that you didn't find the Blackfire treasure at all. What's the point of getting a profit if I don't participate in the operation? Ian added in his mind. Sir Wilder hesitated. If he agreed, he was worried that Sir Lucien would reveal the key clues. If he refused, he was worried that he would anger the other party. At the same time, Ian did not wait for Sir Wilder's reply and continued, I don't want you to regard me as an uninvited guest who comes to disrupt the situation, but as a true partner. I swear on the honor of the Lannister family that I will never report the matter of the Blackfire treasure to the family, otherwise the judgment of the father will come upon the Lannister family. You don't have to do that. Seeing Sir Lucien's serious oath, Wilder finally dispelled the last doubt in his heart, but still spoke politely. The most important thing about cooperation is unity. I must dispel your doubts, so that our alliance can go further. Ian showed a frank smile. You really don't look like someone of your age. Wilder couldn't help but sigh. Guessed it right, but no prize. What should I be like at my age? Greedy and reckless. Of course, I'm not talking about you. Well, let's hurry up and talk about business. Otherwise, let's start with your action this time. Okay, let's start with this action. Although Ian asked in a questioning tone, Sir Wilder instinctively followed his advice. You were right before, we did make an important discovery. We found an important stronghold of the ghosts of Whitewall City. Another ghost camp? Is it the gates to the 7 levels of hell? Ian made a joke. Oh, it's not their camp. Sir Wilder directly ignored the second half of Ian's sentence. In fact, we only found the opponent's camp once in the initial joint operation, and it was an empty camp. Wilder laughed awkwardly. Only found once during the whole process? Ian smelled something unusual. Can you tell me in detail? The adopted son Dorian had mentioned this before, but at that time Dorian provided a lot of information at once, so Ian ignored this detail. Now he thought carefully. This camp that was found only once might have something unusual. Ah. Wilder asked doubtfully, why do you care about this issue? Shouldn't normal people care about the base we found this time? Curiosity. Ian made up a reason casually. After all, you have been fighting with the other side for so long, but you only found their temporary camp once. This makes me very confused. This Wilder didn't want to waste this time, but Sir Lucien seemed very determined. After hesitating for a few seconds, he chose to compromise. He didn't know why. When facing this young Lannister knight, he instinctively didn't want to oppose his opinion. This is a true leadership temperament, but it's a pity that he is probably just a side branch. If Duke Tywin could have such a grandson, he probably wouldn't have to worry about his 2 sons, one of whom joined the Kingsguard and the other was a dwarf, right? Wilder said in his heart. Okay, sir, let me think about that temporary camp at that time. First of all, how did you confirm that the camp belonged to the ghosts of Whitewall City? Wilder recalled for a long time without saying anything, so Ian took the initiative to ask. At that time, the patrol team of Tammen Village reported to us that they found a group of bandit cavalrymen active in the north of their village. We immediately sent a light armed cavalry to rush there, and then found this abandoned camp in the woods north of the village. Is there any evidence related to Blackfire, or the ghosts of Whitewall City? Ian asked. No, but the scale of the camp is very large, with traces of 50 people cooking. There is no armed force of this scale in the vicinity except us, and the ghosts of Whitewall City. In addition, the confession of the patrol captain of Tammen Village. He saw a cavalry entering the woods after looting the caravan, so we judged that it was the temporary camp of the ghosts of Whitewall City. In addition to the traces of camping, are there any other gains in it? For example, living supplies left behind, or goods they robbed from the caravan? No. Sir Wilder shook his head. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, Shadow of the Ghost. So are the traces of camping new? Was the camp abandoned just now, or has it been abandoned for a long time? Ian asked. It was abandoned not long ago. When our horse team first arrived, the campfire inside was still smoking. Shouldn't it be? According to what you said, after the patrol team from Tamman village reported to you, you immediately sent out a light-equipped horse team to check, but only found an empty camp. Even if the other party had a traitor among you, it would be impossible for them to evacuate so quickly, and in such an orderly manner, right? Sorry, Sir Wilder smiled awkwardly. The immediately I mentioned before was just an overview. In fact, after we received the news, it took us a little time to send out the horse team. How much time is a little time? I want accurate information. 1 hour. Probably 1 hour. Looking at the serious Sir Lucian, Wilder inexplicably felt like he was his subordinate. This time is still too short. Ian shook his head. After receiving the message, the inner ghost needs to report it, and then the other party needs to pack up everything and evacuate, and disappear from your sight when your cavalry arrives. It's a raven, Sir Wilder explained. At that time, we held a combat meeting to discuss this matter. Sir Simon believed that the other party used ravens to report the message. Raven? Ian understood what Wilder meant. If the inner ghost and the ghost of White Wall City communicated with ravens, it would indeed create such a time difference. And if the ghost of White Wall City was really looking for the Blackfire treasure, it would not be surprising that they could find someone who could raise ravens and was literate. Since then, you have never found their temporary camp again? Ian continued to ask. No. Sir Wilder said, we searched the area thoroughly, but we never found any other camps of the ghosts of White Wall City. Wait. Thorough search? How dare you say that you have searched such a large area thoroughly with only more than 500 people? That's an area of thousands of square kilometers. Well, of course, it's not just us. At that time, patrols and hunters from more than 20 villages nearby provided us with help. Many of them are fiefs of our alliance members, such as my village of Felon, Wolf and Engel, and the Derry family's village of Tamman and Yoka. Does the Derry family still have fiefs there? Ian was a little surprised. There are only a few left. At its peak, the Derry family owned nearly 60 villages from the east bank of God's Eye Lake to the south bank of the Trident River. Now there are only 4 left. It's good that they didn't deprive them all. I'm afraid only Robert has this magnanimity, Ian complained. At that time, with the help of local patrols and hunters, we searched the area where people were most likely to hide, but in the end we found nothing. Sir Wilder continued. Ian fell silent. He always felt that there was a big problem here, but he couldn't tell where the problem was. Well, let's leave this topic here for now. Ian sighed inaudibly. Let's continue talking about the ghost camp base you discovered. Their base is in an abandoned fishing village on the south bank of the Trident River estuary, 6 leagues, about 29 kilometers, north of here. Abandoned fishing village? Why is it abandoned? It was originally a small fishing village built on a small natural harbor, but during Robert's rebellion, the War of the Usurper, it was Wilder paused, looted by an unknown army, and almost no one in the small fishing village survived. After the war, the lords of this generation, the Riverans, the Derrys, and the Mertens of Maidenpool all lost their power because they stood on the side of the Targaryens. As a result, the entire crossroads fell into depression, let alone the fishing village. At least 40 villages in this area were abandoned after the war. A sad story, Ian commented, but there was no sadness on his face. Go on, tell me what you found. We suspect that the ghosts of White Wall City have found the Blackfire treasure and are moving it there, said Sir Wilder. Even though Ian had guessed that Wilder and his team had found the key clue to the Blackfire treasure, he was still stunned when he heard the news. That bandit group called Ghosts that appeared and disappeared without a trace and hardly left even a temporary camp. Not only was their trace found this time, but they were also on their way to move the treasure. Can you tell me the basis for your conclusion? Ian was reserved about Wilder's conclusion. In fact, it started, Sir Wilder thought for a while. We found that the ghosts of White Wall City have basically stopped all looting activities in the past 2 weeks. They just looted the salt mine in Earl Harroway's town 3 days ago. Sir Willie, who had been silent, interrupted Wilder this time. Ian couldn't help laughing. That's right. It was the ghosts of White Wall City who did it. They did all the bad things. What are you laughing at? Wilder looked at Ian in confusion. I thought of something happy. Nothing. I just found it interesting to see that he refuted your words right after you said them. So you are still a young man after all, right? Wilder breathed a sigh of relief for some reason. The salt mine in Earl Harroway's town was indeed attacked 3 days ago. I heard that many people died there. But according to the foreman's description, he temporarily left the salt mine with the salt workers and lent the mine to a traveling merchant. This should be a private conflict between the traveling merchant caravan and others, and it should have nothing to do with the ghosts of Whitewall City. It's just that the ghosts of Whitewall City have been doing evil for a long time in this generation, and everyone likes to put the blame on them. Okay, then let's assume that the ghosts of Whitewall City have nothing to do with the attack on the salt mine in Earl Harroway's town 3 days ago. Of course there can't be any connection. That thing was done by the ghost of Lannister, Ian added in his heart. Then what? The ghosts of Whitewall City seem to have disappeared suddenly, so we are very worried that they have found the Blackfire treasure and are preparing to evacuate. So why can't they choose to give up after realizing that they can't find the treasure at all? Ian asked back. Of course, this possibility exists, but no matter what, their sudden disappearance is not a good thing for us. Wilder explained. Isn't it a good thing for the bandit group that can't be dealt with to disappear? You are really a good and competent lord, Ian complained in his heart. So we dispersed the people and tried to find their whereabouts. Chapter 56 Abandoned Fishing Village. And did you really find it? Ian asked. No, none of the people we sent to the Whitewall City found anything. Wilder shook his head. Instead, my son Roger got a surprise. That was about 10 days ago. He returned from Silent Island with 4 of his men. He went to the island to confess. Sir Wilder paused and did not continue to talk about the confession. Ian knew about Silent Island. It was said that a saint visited this island 2000 years ago and created many holy relics after settling there. Therefore, people often visit this island to confess or pray. Anyway, Sir Wilder continued, Roger rode back from Silent Island and came to the abandoned fishing village. After landing, he met a group of people in the fishing village, led by a knight. Roger passed by them without any intersection, but just as Roger passed by the knight, he found that the other's right hand had no forearm. I remember that you cut off the forearm of the Ghost Knight's right hand when you fought with the Ghost Knight of Whitewall City, right? Ian immediately remembered this. That's right. Wait, when did I tell you about this? Wilder asked in surprise. It's not important. Ian shook his head and urged, go on, go on. Roger was suspicious at the time, but he didn't dare to act rashly because he was not wearing armor at the time, and the opponent had a total of 7 people, and he thought he had no chance of winning. After Roger left the abandoned fishing village, he left 2 of his men to guard nearby, and he rushed to Willer's Manor as soon as possible. I said before that the abandoned fishing village is only 6 leagues away from here. I was here at the time. After hearing Roger's news, we immediately gathered more than 10 people and rushed to the fishing village with Roger. However, before we arrived, we met one of the 2 people left by Roger on the road. He hurried to report to us that a caravan of more than 20 people had entered the abandoned fishing village and joined the people inside. How could there be a normal caravan going to an abandoned fishing village? Ian began to believe Sir Wilder's judgment. Yes, I judged at that time that it was the Whitewall City ghost team and they were moving the Blackfire treasure to that fishing village. Sir Wilder nodded. This is a great opportunity, but we don't have enough troops to attack the other side. We dare not continue to advance to the fishing village in large numbers because we are worried about alerting the enemy. So I simply asked Sir Willie to wait with the guards and let Roger take me to the abandoned fishing village alone. We found a hidden position to observe the people in the fishing village, hoping to find some way to break the deadlock. Wilder said, looking at Ian. Why are you looking at me? Go on. Ian said strangely. Oh, Sir Lucian, I just thought you would have some unique insights. Wilder said, and laughed. Go on, my friend, go on. In the fishing village, there are more than 30 people including the knight's men and the caravan. We have no chance of winning if we just fight them directly. Besides, since they are there will be at least 1 ship to pick them up. Our chance of winning is even smaller. I was almost in despair at that time. However, just when I thought we had missed the treasure, the caravan appeared again. They left the abandoned fishing village and headed west, towards the direction of the King's Road. They didn't transport all the treasure in one go. This was Ian's first reaction. Yes, my judgment is exactly the same as yours. You said it was a caravan of more than 20 people. How many carts did they have? 7? Or 8? Anyway, it was a very large team. Then the question is, the so-called Blackfy treasure we left behind was not left by Demon Blackfy, but only by Ambrose Butterwell, the Earl of Whitewall. How much money could he leave behind? Even 100,000 gold dragons is only more than 1,600 pounds, which can be easily transported out with 2.5 large boxes. 7 gods, how could the Earl of Whitewall find so much gold so easily? Most of the treasure he left behind should be silver deer, right? Sir Wilder rolled his eyes. Damn it. You are worthy of being a member of the Lannister family who can even shit out gold. Have you never seen silver in your life? And 100,000 gold dragons? You really dare to think about it? If you can have a treasure worth 20,000 or 30,000 gold dragons, it will be a blessing from the 7 gods. As for 100,000, why don't you go home and let Duke Tywin pull it for you? Exclamation mark. Ian held his forehead awkwardly. It was all because the system gave him 3,000 gold dragons at one time, which made him subconsciously treat gold dragons as ordinary currency. Well, if the treasure is silver deer or even copper coins, such a caravan does need to be divided into several times to complete the transfer of the treasure. After all, the exchange rate of gold dragons and silver deer in this world has reached an astonishing 1:210. But why do I still feel that something is wrong? Ian asked himself in his heart, but after thinking for a long time, he couldn't find a clue, so he gave up again. Go on, sir. Did you think of something just now? Sir Wilder noticed Ian's expression. He now attaches great importance to Ian's opinions, just as he had always attached great importance to the opinions of Black Falcon and Sir Simon. If you have a good brain, just listen to what people with good brains say. This is the experience he has summed up, after living for most of his life. No, Ian shook his head. I just feel that something is wrong, but I haven't figured it out yet. Don't worry, if I think of anything, I will tell you, as soon as possible. Go on, Sir Wilder, finish your story first. Ian urged again. Okay, Wilder nodded. When I realized that the other party had not been able to transfer the treasure all at once, I had 2 ideas. One was to immediately attack the abandoned fishing village and snatch the treasure that had been transported. The second was to send people to follow the caravan and find the place where they hid the treasure. But you didn't choose any of them. Ian continued. If you had chosen, you wouldn't have taken action until now. You really know everything, just like an old woman descended to the earth. Sir Wilder exclaimed. Believe me, I would rather hear the praise of a warrior from heaven. Ian rolled his eyes. Go on, I think your story is almost over, isn't it? Yes, just as you said, I didn't choose either of the 2 options, because once we alert the enemy, we won't be able to get the complete treasure. Notes. 1. The crone, one of the 7 gods in the Andal faith, symbolizes wisdom, and its image is an old woman holding a lamp. Chapter 57 Wilder's plan. People have many shortcomings, and greed is the most dangerous one. Ian commented. He knew why Sir Willie Ward in the original book was still penniless after more than half a year. If Sir Wilder had chosen to directly raid the remaining people in the fishing village, they could at least get this batch of treasures. It's a pity that he didn't. And finally, judging from the results shown in the original book, no matter what plan Sir Wilder finally chose, it must have failed. That's what I said at the time. Sir Willie Ward rarely expressed his support for Ian. After the other party's caravan left, we only need to launch an attack immediately. Then the treasure they hoarded in the fishing village at that time is already within reach. But Wilder is very firm. He refused to take action immediately. And later it proved that I was right, wasn't it? Wilder argued. They are still stationed there, and no ship has come to pick them up, which means that they will wait until the treasure is completely transferred to the fishing village before the other party's ship arrives. Willie Ward didn't seem to agree with Wilder's statement, but he didn't contradict Wilder again. So your plan is to wait for them to move all the treasures to the fishing village and then catch them all in one fell swoop. Ian understood Wilder's plan from what he said. That's about it. Sir Wilder nodded. Okay, then what is your complete plan? Ian asked. He planned to analyze Wilder's plan carefully, since he already knew that the other party's plan would fail. As long as he could find out the reason for Wilder's failure in advance, he could turn defeat into victory. First, we keep monitoring the abandoned fishing village to make sure there is nothing unusual there. Are you sure the other side hasn't discovered you? Yes, because we occupy a hidden high point outside the fishing village, and the other side's team that stayed in the fishing village has never sent anyone out. How many people did you deploy? I mean, if you want to catch the other side in one fell swoop, then you need to summon the forces of your entire Knight Alliance. If you do that, I'm confused. In that case, you don't need to ask Martha to help you recruit knights from other places to help, right? No, Sir Lucien, I didn't summon the Knight Alliance this time. First, this action is too big, and it is easy to arouse the other side's vigilance. Second, Sir Wilder paused, seeming a little hesitant, but looking at Ian's deep eyes, he gave up the idea of hiding it. Second, I feel that there is a problem within us. Although every time we gather together, we always like to blame the traitor on the Black Falcon mercenaries, but I know that the traitor is on our side. After Sir Wilder finished speaking, his face was obviously much darker. The traitor is on your side? Then how did Black Falcon Morgan discover the traitor? Do you have any evidence to prove you're thinking so? Ian asked. I thought you would ask about the Black Falcon mercenaries. You have always been asking about every detail. Wilder was a little surprised by Ian's reaction. Ian wanted to ask Wilder to answer his questions directly, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he realized that the other party was not his adopted son Dorian and his group. Wilder was an old knight with great power in the local area, not his subordinate. Although he was very respectful to him in his attitude, if he kept bossing him around, it would be detrimental to unity. I have other sources of information, Knight. I recruited several mercenaries from the Black Falcon mercenaries before, and they told me some information. Ian explained. You recruited people from the Black Falcon mercenaries? Sir Wilder suddenly became interested. Then do you know what's going on with the Black Falcon mercenaries? I heard that Morgan died, and there was an internal conflict in their base the night before yesterday. Did you hear anything? I know a lot. I got first-hand information about the death of Black Falcon, and I got the zero-hand information about the internal conflict of the Black Falcon mercenaries. I heard something. It seems that Sir Harrison did it to compete for the position of the Grand Master. Ian casually gave a conclusion that the other party was most likely to find out, and then quickly changed the subject. Let's talk about our own problems first. Ian skillfully brought himself into Sir Wilder's Knight Alliance. What is your basis for thinking that the internal ghost came from within us? Sure enough, after hearing Ian's question, Wilder no longer bothered about the Black Falcon mercenaries, but began to answer Ian's questions. After we separated from the Black Falcon mercenaries, our operation was leaked again. At that time, Sir Willie's brother Sir Can found clues about the other party, so we organized an operation. That operation was only participated by our own people, but it still failed. So, how many people participated in your operation this time? Ian frowned. He doubted Sir Wilder's strength. Although the number of ghosts in Whitewall City was not large, the other side was all cavalry. As for the lightly armed guards that Ian had just seen in this manner, if they were not 3 to 5 times as many as the other side, they were basically sending food. Even if they were 3 to 5 times as many as the other side, they would still need good tactical deployment and favorable terrain to have the strength to fight. My son and I are squires, 12 cavalrymen and 40 infantrymen of our family, Sir Willie and his brother Sir Khan, and 4 cavalrymen and 15 infantrymen of their family. Wilder began to introduce, and some knights I recruited through Martha before. I told Martha to make sure that they are from well-known families outside the Riverlands and the Crown. But you forgot to tell him not to find knights from families that are too powerful. Ian smiled. Oh, Wilder was a little embarrassed. Sir Lucien, please don't mention that matter again, okay? Of course, we are allies now. Ian said very generous. Martha helped me recruit some people, including Sir Bericella, the second son of Lady Sheila from Stormlands, and his 6 companions, all of whom are cavalry. 2 sworn knights and their squires from the Green Apple Fossa Way family in the New Barrel City of the River Edge, and a hired knight and his mercenary team from the Burway family, also from the River Edge, 4 free riders. And, you and your 2 heavily armored squires. Wild couldn't call Roland Keith knights, but it would certainly be inappropriate to calculate their combat effectiveness as squires. After all the knights in Wild's team were not as well equipped as them. So where are the others now? I didn't see them in the manor. We deployed most of them in an abandoned village north of the manor, which is closer to the abandoned fishing village. So are these all your deployments? I'm worried that this is still not safe enough. Chapter 58 Red Dragon and Black Dragon, Part 1. Of course, so we are still recruiting people. Sir Simon has calculated that it takes 12 to 16 days for the caravan to travel from the fishing village to the vicinity of White Wall City. It has only been 10 days since the caravan left the fishing village. Martha can still recruit people for us in the remaining time. Moreover, if the other party still has not transported all the treasures this time, we will have another 12 to 16 days to prepare. Sir Simon of Derry City? You didn't mention him before. Oh, that's because he is not on standby with my men now. He has returned to Derry City. He asked me to notify him before the action. He can mobilize about 30 people to participate in the war. Although his people are mainly infantry, they are all elite standing troops, which is crucial to making our infantry line combat effective. But correspondingly, he asked for 30% of the treasure of Blackfire. Wilder said here, and decided to take this opportunity to tell Sir Lucian about the entire profit distribution. As for the rest, I promised 10% to the 3 hired knights and let them distribute it among themselves. So you kept 60% for yourself before I came? Ian looked at Sir Wilder with interest. No, according to the original plan, Willie and I will each take 20%, and the remaining 20% will be divided equally among the other people in the Knights Alliance. Those people can share the money without participating in the action. They participated in most of the previous actions. And the last time I didn't inform them. It's not their fault. At least it's not the fault of others except the insider. Sir Wilder took the responsibility on himself. What a fair leader. Ian sighed. And then you gave me their 20%. No, my plan is to deduct the share given to you, and then we will distribute the rest according to the original proportion. After all, according to the distribution plan, when we cooperated with the Black Falcon mercenaries at that time, we only had 50% to take from the beginning. Is this the reason why you insisted on waiting for the ghosts of White Wall City to gather all the treasures before taking action? After all, if you directly raid the abandoned fishing village, what you can get according to this proportion is really a bit unworthy of your efforts in the past 6 months. Ian just finished his evaluation and suddenly froze there. What did you think of? That place that's wrong. I felt it's wrong several times. Ian's face changed several times in an instant. What is it? Gather the treasure, Ian whispered, then suddenly looked up and looked at Wilder. If it was you, if you found the Blackfire treasure and you were sure to move the treasure to the abandoned fishing village and there was a ship to pick it up, what would you do? Sir Wilder looked at Ian in a daze. I said something was wrong. Ian took a deep breath and gave up the idea of guiding Sir Wilder. If I found the treasure, I would definitely transport the treasure to the fishing village as quickly as possible. Of course, the amount of this treasure is too large, and it would be too conspicuous to have a caravan with 30 or 40 carts at a time, but we can obviously divide it into several caravans for transportation. After all, the shorter the time of this kind of thing, the less likely it is to be exposed. In other words, when you monitor the fishing village, you should keep seeing caravans coming in and out. No, except for the first caravan, no one else entered the fishing village. Sir Wilder shook his head. What does this mean? Sir Wilder looked confused. This means that this is all the manpower they have. Ian raised his voice. Doesn't this just fit? There are more than 20 people in the caravan, and there are 7 people in the abandoned fishing village. If the other party has placed more than 10 people guarding the location of the treasure, wouldn't it be exactly the size of the camp we found at the beginning? Close to 50 people. Wilder still didn't understand what Ian wanted to say. Then how did they deal with the supplies they looted in the past few months? A bandit cavalry without a fixed camp. A bandit cavalry that you can't even find the shadow of the other party. How did they deal with the supplies they looted? I haven't thought about this question. Sir Wilder was a little embarrassed. He turned back to look at his good brother Sir Willy, and after finding that he was also confused, his mood inexplicably improved a lot. But what does this have to do with the Blackfire treasure? Wilder turned back to look at Ian, hoping to get an explanation from him. If the ghosts of Whitewall City successfully dispose of the stolen goods every time, then there is only one possibility. That is, they have several companions pretending to be caravans. Every time they make a profit, they will provide the goods to those fake caravans and let them transport the goods away and sell them. And with the existence of such caravans, when they find the Blackfire treasure and prepare to move the treasure, will they not use them? No way. They will put all their manpower into the transfer of the treasure. In other words, after they have deployed corresponding defenses in the fishing village and the original treasure hiding place, they can at least form several caravans of the Scaly Sea. But there is no second caravan in the abandoned fishing village. Sir Wilder laughed. That means these caravans don't exist at all. The ghosts of Whitewall City only have the cavalry who fought against you. They have no other helpers, and those people are all their manpower. Then how did they deal with the stolen goods? Sir Wilder felt confused. They need so much time to transport such a small treasure. How can they handle the goods that are much larger than the treasure? Ian asked. And if they can't handle the goods they have robbed, then they can only hoard them. Impossible. There are no deep mountains and old forests near Whitewall City. There are only a few sparse woods in that area, and the surrounding area is flat. There is no way they have a camp that we can't find, Sir Wilder said firmly. Ian glanced at Sir Wilder. If you hadn't described the details of the abandoned fishing village so clearly, I would almost suspect that the whole thing was a farce directed and acted by you. Directed and acted. Wilder was stunned for a moment, and then asked loudly, you suspect that the ghost of Whitewall City is my man? Where has he been humiliated like this in his life? At this moment, he even wondered why he was so restrained and didn't directly challenge Ian to a duel. No, Ian shook his head. I said almost, which means, I believe in your innocence and honor, Sir Wilder. Ian said and changed to a more pleasing way. The look on Sir Wilder's face improved slightly. Besides, Ian showed his signature smile. After eliminating your suspicion, I think the truth has surfaced. Chapter 59, Red Dragon and Black Dragon, Part 2. The truth? Oh. Sir Lucian, can you please have mercy on an old man like me and explain it more clearly? Sir Wilder's mentality was a little broken. Now, I only have one last question left. Ian did not answer, but asked an old question. Are you sure that you saw 3 black dragons when you were fighting the ghosts of Whitewall City? Why do you mention this question? Wilder seemed to have been questioned too many times on this issue, and he directly made an oath gesture. I swear on my honor that what I saw was a black dragon with a red background. They also ask me, but I have said it many times. Black dragon. Black dragon. I'm sure it is a black dragon. At the end, Wilder did not hold back his tone, and it sounded like he was roaring. I remember that it was at night when you fought with the robber knight from Whitewall City. Did the Black Falcon mercenary you recruit tell you that? That's not important. The point is, was the light bright at that time? Your battle took place in a house. Was the light bright at that time? The light at that time. The whole village was burning at that time. Wilder fell into memories, but the house we fought in was backlit, and the house was pitch black. But my eyesight is very good, and I can see things in the dark. He added an excuse. You can see things clearly in the dark, but it is impossible to see colors clearly. It is difficult for human eyes to really see colors in the dark. Ian smiled and shook his head. In the dark, human eyes are mainly active by rod cells, which can only distinguish light and dark but not colors. Can't? Wilder heard this statement for the first time. Yes, I'm sure of it, Sir Wilder. If the room was really in darkness as you said, it would be impossible for you to distinguish colors. So what on earth make you so sure that what you saw was a black dragon and not any other color? Wilder himself became uncertain now. I don't know, he said twice, and then argued firmly, but I remember it very clearly. A black dragon on a red background. I remember it very clearly. Red background? So you also saw the red background? Ian found a new problem. Yes. Sir Wilder suddenly became excited. Red background. That's what I saw before I chased into the earthen house. The light was very bright at that time. I would never have made a mistake at that time. Wilder shouted, as if he had finally found the perfect evidence to defend his honor. Black dragon on a red background. Red dragon on a black background. Everyone who has studied heraldry knows it. The black dragon on a red background is the emblem of black fire. But, you cut open the other's robe and saw the emblem on his breastplate after entering the earthen house, didn't you? What did you see before entering the house? Ian asked back calmly, and things were exactly as he expected. This. Wilder opened his mouth wide and stood there in a daze. I saw it. The red color you saw came from the other person's robe. That person was wearing a red robe that day, right? No, he was wearing a white robe, but the part on his chest was completely stained red with blood. Due to your familiarity with heraldry, the impression of a black dragon on a red background and a red dragon on a black background has long been deeply engraved in your mind. So when you saw the three-headed dragon logo on the other person's breastplate in the dark, you subconsciously took the red on the other person's robe as the background, and your first reaction was to see a black dragon. Ian explained for him. Oh. 7 levels of hell. This is really ridiculous. God forgive me. Wilder gasped for breath, and he finally realized where the problem was. And if your judgment of the black dragon was an illusion from the beginning, how can you talk about the treasure of black fire? Ian patted Wilder on the shoulder. Well, now everything is clear. It's time for us to make the guy who fooled you pay the price. Time came to the 6th day, since Ian traveled to the world of ice and fire, and it was also the 3rd day he stayed in Sir Willie Ward's manor. In the past 2 days, Ian, who finally had a separate courtyard without being disturbed, began his special training under the guidance of LUOR. Although Ian's initial performance was a mess, with excellent layout data, his progress speed surprised LUOR again and again. In addition, last night, the netcast by Ian at the crossroads, Ian brought him another head. My subordinates successfully killed a player and got 2 points and 1 extra spiritual power. Since it was a subordinate who killed the player, the basic points and extra attributes were halved, and probably because the player had already used up his initial points, this time even the points that were seized were gone, and the whole harvest could only be said to be better than nothing. After the update, Ian's profile became Ian, Strength 26, Agility 24, Spirit 3 Skills, Etiquette Basics, Common Language Reading and Writing Basics, Advanced Swordsmanship, Advanced Horsemanship, Intermediate Lance Attribute Points. 0 Skill Points. 0 points. 19 so far. Ian has eliminated 4 players in just 5 days. Of course, the luck of those players who did not meet Ian was not much better. As the players gradually completed the initial running process and began to contact each other, the trap set by Gao finally began to explode with its due power. The 4th day was a turning point. The system settlement report on the 3rd night showed that 96 players survived. On the 4th day, this number had become 92, and last night, this number was updated to 86. Ian predicted that this first meat grinder would not end until the number of players was at least 70 or even less than half. By that time, only those who had already obtained points by hunting players could get a short period of development time. Those who still failed to obtain points could only live in fear under the assassination mechanism of the scoreboard at the end of each month. After breakfast, Ian followed LUOR to the courtyard and prepared to start today's training. However, before the training officially started, Bron, who had been watching for 2 days, made a discordant voice. Why don't you start training with more basic things first? There is no problem with your posture, but you look very unfamiliar, just like you used to be a good player, but you haven't touched a sword for many years. Damn, what nonsense am I talking about? You look like you haven't been weaned yet, how can you be unfamiliar? He immediately shook his head and denied this idea. I think you should be more respectful to your employer, Ian said speechlessly. Chapter 60 The Core of the Rapier. You paid me for killing someone. If you want me to say nice things, the money will be charged separately. Bronn didn't care. If the money is enough, I can also help you wean, but in a way that is far less gentle than his. Ian rolled his eyes and ignored the bastard. He knew what Bronn meant. Raoul's training method was too brief, which made him basically not get beaten. As we all know, getting beaten is the fastest way to improve. But at this stage, Ian believes that improving his strength quickly is not as important as maintaining his image. After all, he can get a position close to the leader in Sir Wilder's alliance, firstly because of the Lannister surname, and secondly because of the image he showed, which was called an old woman descending to the earth by Wilder. If he gets beaten black and blue during training, it will easily make him lose his dignity. However, in Ian's opinion, Bronn's suggestion is indeed of reference value. Compared with the pseudo-combat training with Raoul, honestly practicing the basic movements may be more helpful to him at this stage. Thinking of this, Ian cast an inquiring look at Luoer. Luoer nodded, indicating that this plan was also feasible. He waved to Chijin beside him, and told him to go to the training ground of the manor, to bring back 2 scarecrows. Then he turned to Ian and said, well, today we will start training with the simplest and most core action, stabbing. Thrust. Only when facing an enemy without armor or light armor, slashing will play the greatest role. In the battle between knights, stabbing is the most effective use of the sword. Luoer explained patiently. A knight who is proficient in stabbing skills can easily break the defense of chainmail, light armor and most plate armor. If the angle is appropriate, it can also penetrate some plate armor of average quality. Ian nodded thoughtfully. He had read relevant experimental papers before. It takes more than 130 joules of energy to break the roughest cast iron plate armor or armor, while the swinging energy of a blade and an axe is between 60 joules and 130 joules. The maximum swinging energy of 2 hands can reach about 200 joules. This means that, when you face a fully armored knight, it is very difficult to effectively kill him by slashing. However, stabbing is different. Since the focus of stabbing is all concentrated on the tip of the sword, the energy required to break the enemy's armor is much lower than that of slashing, if the fracture toughness and hardness of the enemy's armor remain unchanged. That's why Raoul said that stabbing is the most suitable method for fighting between knights. What if the opponent is wearing high quality plate armor or heavy armor? Ian was not arguing, but was asking Raoul very seriously. After all his knowledge in related fields comes from books, and its practicality is definitely far less than Raoul's experience. Of course there will be targeted attack methods, but when dealing with that kind of enemy, I prefer to keep a leaf hammer ready as a secondary weapon at any time, which may be easier to achieve than the sword you have practiced for several years. It really makes sense. Rika, now you know where you lost to Robert, right? Okay, what you need to learn now is just the basics of swordsmanship. Don't think about those complicated issues for now. After Luoer finished speaking, he asked, do you know what the core secret of the rapier is? Use the pointed end to stab the enemy. Ian remembered this. This was the trick that Jon Snow taught Arya. Use the pointed end to stab the enemy. 7 hells. Do you think you are a child in the Enlightenment period? You want to stab with the hilt without the tip? Ha ha ha. Ian's answer made Luoer laugh, and his beard stained with wine jumped up and down. The hilt of the half-hand sword can indeed be used for attack, but not stabbing but smashing. When you can't find the opponent's flaw in the fight or your posture is just right to attack the opponent with the hilt, you can consider using the weight ball on the hilt to smash his head. If the angle of attack is right, this move can sometimes achieve an effect no less than a hammer. But now, the action I want to teach you is stabbing, Luoer said, raising the sword in his hand to the level of his shoulder. Watch it. The core secret of the stabbing sword is that the sword and the forearm are in a straight line. After speaking, he pushed the sword forward, and when his arm was about to straighten, he suddenly accelerated the force, so that the force reached the tip of the sword, and instantly pierced the scarecrow in front of him. This is the most basic stabbing sword move, flat stabbing. Now it's your turn to try, Luoer said to Ian. Ian didn't think there was anything strange about this sword, but when he walked to the scarecrow and watched Raoul take out the sword with force, he realized that Raoul didn't pierce the straw, but the wooden stake in the scarecrow's body. Ian took a deep breath, followed Raoul's posture just now, raised the emblem sword in his hand, and then thrust the sword out. The tip of the sword pierced into the scarecrow's body, but slid to one side when it hit the wooden stake inside, and then pierced out from the back of the scarecrow. When stabbing, the tip of the sword must be straight, not tilted to the left or right. Roll corrected. Try again. Ian once again recalled the scene of Roll's sword just now, and thrust the sword out. This time, the tip of his sword sank shallowly into the wooden stake, and it immediately made his palm numb. Not bad. You've made great progress. Roll nodded. My swordsmanship has reached the advanced level. Ian complained in his heart. But you still haven't remembered the core secret of the rapier I just told you. The sword and the forearm should be in a straight line. Luo took a sip of wine. Straight line. He repeated, and then walked to Ian. Let your forearm become part of the sword. Luo held Ian's wrist. Relax, Kit, relax. Ian felt like he was being clamped by a pair of pliers. He even felt that the other party could crush his bones at any time if he wanted to. Luo's board strength was only less than 10 points higher than his current strength. It should not be such a terrible gap. Is it caused by the skill of using strength? Ian couldn't help but think. Relax. Luo pinched Ian's wrist and repeated this sentence. If the fingers and wrist are too tense, the sword cannot be in a straight line with the forearm when stabbing, so the power cannot be fully transferred to the sword. Do you understand? Yes. Ian nodded, modest like a primary school student going to school for the first time. Come again. Luo handed the sword to Ian again. Remember, when you thrust the sword, relax your thumb slightly, and let your little finger and ring finger hold the hilt tightly to exert force. Ian thrust the sword again, and just like last time, the tip of the sword pierced shallowly into the wooden stake. The movements are much more standard than last time. Practice it yourself first. You still have a long way to go before you can become a qualified swordsman. You can't rush it. Luo poured another sip of wine into his mouth. Ian did not answer, but silently recalled Luo's movements just now, and began to train. His training lasted until dusk. At this time, Sir Wilder sent someone to inform that Sir Simon of Derry City had been invited to Sir Willy's castle. Chapter 61. Battle of the Abandoned Fishing Village. The abandoned fishing village is located on the south bank of the Trident River estuary. 3 leagues upstream on the north bank is the salt pan town. An island called Silent Island is located in the middle of the river. When Sir Darren Grafson arrived here with his caravan, the entire abandoned fishing village was silent, just like the thousands of days and nights since that cloudy afternoon 14 years ago. That was a story that happened not long after the Battle of the Trident River. At that time, a group of Vale cavalrymen were chasing the remnants of the royalists who were defeated in front of the Ruby Beach. They marched eastward and looted the village when passing by this wealthy fishing village. In order to avoid the subsequent reckoning by the honor-like Duke Arryn, they slaughtered the villagers in the village without hesitation, after looting the fishing village, leaving no one alive. The periphery of the abandoned fishing village is a wetland overgrown with weeds. The path that once led to the fishing village has become less obvious after being soaked by the river water after repeated high tides over the past decade. Under the order of Sir Darren, the caravan of 28 people stopped about 800 yards outside the fishing village. Then Sir Darren's squire left the team alone, pushed aside the weeds that almost blocked the view, and headed for the fishing village. The squire rode carefully on the muddy and slippery road to the entrance of the fishing village, confirmed the secret code with a guard in the fishing village, and then returned to Sir Darren cautiously. After confirming that there were no unexpected situations, Sir Darren ordered all the caravan members to dismount and head to the fishing village. Darren, have you noticed that this path is much muddier than the last time we came here? On the way, old Sir Shallot said to his young master, it's not the flood season now, there is no reason for the tide to rise here. How could the ground be so soft and rotten? Maybe it rained heavily here during the time we were away. Sir Darren guessed. Maybe, but I always feel a little uneasy in my heart. The old knight shook his head. And why didn't Sir Eris come out to pick us up this time? I reminded him last time. Has he completely forgotten his responsibilities? Oh, Uncle Shallot, I ask for your forgiveness on behalf of Eris. Sir Darren explained on behalf of his good brother. He lost his right hand, the hand he used to use the sword. He was originally the most powerful knight among us and our vanguard, but now he can only lead people to do logistics work. You have to allow him to feel disappointed. But not at this time, young master. Sir Shalid turned to look at Darren and said firmly, remember the promise you made to me when you left Seagull Town. You swear not to let the family be implicated because of this matter. Yes, I swear. But now, Sir Eris's careless state is very dangerous. He may drag us into a bad situation. I ask you to replace him. Uncle Shalid, please forgive me. Eris is not my subordinate. He is the representative of the Derry family and our most important ally. How can I have the power to replace him? Darren smiled bitterly, then defended in a low voice, and how could it be a bad situation? Our operation has ended. Now we are waiting to transfer all the things to the fishing village, and then board the ship to pick us up, and we will fly away. Have you selectively forgotten the nearly 100 people deployed by Sir Wilder nearby? They are eyeing us, and want to eat us up in one bite. Come on. Darren sneered, if I wasn't worried that killing them would attract wider attention and leave us no time to transport the rest of the things, I would have followed Eris's wishes and ambushed and annihilated them. I don't know what they have to worry about. They are just a group of idiots who are fooled by Simon. Darren said with contempt, if Wilder summoned the troops of his entire Knights League, it might be a big trouble for us. As for now, oh, do you know what his plan is? Simon wrote very clearly in the letter that the heavy infantry and crossbowmen that Wilder's plan relied on to stabilize the infantry line all came from Derry City. Ha ha ha. Darren couldn't help laughing. I'm already looking forward to the wonderful expression on Wilder's face when Sir Simon attacks them from behind. Master, don't you think it's too quiet here? Sir Shalid was not affected by Darren's arrogant mood, and he was always observing the surroundings vigilantly, and just now, Ricebug also shrank back into the abandoned fishing village after exchanging secret signals with us. I have a bad feeling. How could it be? Darren said, but he also restrained the smile on his face. Sir Shalid's intuition has always been accurate. According to the old knight himself, his intuition saved him twice during the Usurper War. Everyone stop. The next moment, Darren gave a direct order, and the entire team stopped in front of the entrance of the fishing village. Then he turned to his attendant and said, take 2 people to the fishing village to check the situation. Darren's attendant dismounted and took 2 people to the village. Big Ricebug. Little Rossi, you saw us coming and didn't come out to greet us? Darren's attendant shouted loudly to the fishing village, but it was not his 2 old friends who responded to him, but a dense rain of arrows. 16 or 17 archers suddenly appeared on the roofs of the dilapidated houses in the fishing village and shot arrows in their hands at the caravan outside the village from a high position. The 3 people who entered the fishing village first were the first to bear the brunt. A feather arrow shot from a high point less than 5 meters in front of Darren's attendant and pierced his neck without a throat guard on the spot. The other 2 cavalrymen beside him were also shot into sieves. Enemy attack. Old Sir Shalid was the first to react. While shouting, he took off the shield from the horse he was leading. Then he raised his shield above his head and rushed to the side of the caravan's cart, which contained a sophisticated crossbow that would allow him to counterattack the enemies on the wall. However, just as Shalid lifted the coarse cloth covering the cart, and before he could take out the crossbow, he saw a large group of infantrymen holding shields rushing out of the fishing village and rushing towards the caravan. We have to keep a distance from them. Shalid threw away the crossbow in his hand, ran back to his warhorse, and shouted to Darren behind him, we can't play the advantage of cavalry here. What about these things? Just throw them to them? What if they don't come to chase us? What if they pull the things back to the fishing village and defend it? Darren looked at the front of the caravan, where the enemy infantrymen holding spears formed a shield wall and pressed over. Even if these spearmen were a mob, in such a narrow terrain, they could still pose a fatal threat to the good players in their team. What's more, they had long-range firepower support behind them. What happened? Eris? Darren looked towards the fishing village with doubt. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, Quiz Game. 3 days ago what happened? Give me an explanation, Simon. In a cellar of an abandoned fishing village, Sir Eris, who was tied up like a dumpling, asked impatiently when he saw his brother Simon coming to him. They were attacked last night. Dozens of enemies came in the dark. They were surrounded by the enemy before they could react. After a simple resistance failed, Eris chose to surrender, and then he was tied up and thrown here, and he has been locked up until today. Speak. Simon. Answer me. Sir Eris's face was ferocious. He was still wondering why Simon didn't inform him that Wilder and the others would take action last night. It was not until Simon and Sir Wilder walked in together that he realized that he had been betrayed. Why? Why did you betray me? Sir Eris roared at his own brother with all his strength. The excessive movement pulled the wound on Eris's face, and a trace of blood oozed from the scab that had not yet completely dried, but Eris ignored the pain and looked at Simon fiercely. I have no choice, brother. Sir Simon lowered his head, not daring to look Eris in the eyes, and answered tremblingly, they caught me. Wilder caught you? Eris was stunned and looked up at Wilder beside Simon. Damn it. Didn't you say before that this old guy trusts you absolutely? Where did you reveal the flaw? I don't know. Simon shook his head blankly, fear in his tone. I don't know. They found out the truth. I just walked into the castle of the Ward family the afternoon before yesterday, and I was caught by them. They beat me. They threatened me, Eris. They said that if I didn't cooperate, they would cut me into 3,600 pieces alive. You also found out the truth? Eris didn't listen to Simon to continue, and turned to Sir Wilder and asked, it's okay that Black Falcon Morgan can find out the truth. What makes you think you can do it? It's not me. Wilder shook his head, his tone somewhat vicissitudes. I was more shocked than you are now when I heard the truth. To be honest, I didn't believe his conclusion at first. Even though he gave me a very detailed explanation, I still couldn't believe it until Simon confessed everything. I found that he was right. So who is that guy? Did Black Falcon Morgan crawl out of the Seven Hells? Eris broke into a mouthful. He felt that this story was even more bizarre than the fairy tale told by the old nanny. It's me. A voice came from behind Sir Simon. Eris then reluctantly opened his eyes, which were difficult to open due to the swelling at the corners of his eyes, and looked at the boy in the shadow behind Wilder, who he had ignored at first. Who are you? Eris originally thought that this person was just a new servant of Sir Wilder. It doesn't matter who I am, Ian said with a smile, taking 2 steps forward and squatting in front of Sir Eris Riverman. Shall we talk? What can we talk about? Of course, let's talk about things your brother doesn't know. There are some questions I haven't solved yet, Ian said, glancing at Simon, frightened him and quickly shrank back to the corner. Things Simon doesn't know? Eris's eyes were evasive for a moment. Simon is my brother. I don't think there is anything I know that he doesn't know. It seems that it's inconvenient to communicate with too many people. Ian turned and looked at Wilder. Can I talk to him alone? Wilder frowned deeply when he heard this. This was really a very impolite request. Originally, he should have been the one to lead the interrogation of Eris. He had already made a big concession by giving the right of interrogation to this solution. Now this little guy actually asked him to get out? The next caravan is our main event, sir. They may come here at any time. You need to design our trap yourself so that we can catch all the ghosts in White Wall City. Fighting is your domain. Leave the other trivial matters to me, okay? Ian said sincerely. It's really hard to find a reason to refuse. Okay, tell me what you find out, as soon as possible. Sir Wilder glanced at Eris's empty right arm, finally nodded, and then grabbed Simon, and left the cellar together. Even if you get rid of him, I won't tell you anything. Eris leaned his head against the mossy wall behind him, showing an expression of a dead pig that is not afraid of boiling water. Robbery on the King's Road is just a whim of Darren, and we want to make a small fortune. It has nothing to do with our family. Nothing to do with the family? But you can use the family's fief to hide your bandit group. Tammin Village, the village that has been the most active in cooperating with Sir Wilder and his bandit suppression operations from the beginning. Who would have thought that it is actually the camp of the ghosts of White Wall City? Simon and I are both illegitimate children. Derry City will be inherited by our legitimate brother in the future. My father feels guilty about us, so he gave me a village. Eris paused for a moment, as if thinking, but I'm not satisfied with the benefits brought by such a village, so I did this, that's all. Perfunctory Ian was interrupted by Eris, as soon as he opened his mouth. It has always been you who ask me questions, which can't be considered as talking. Now it's your turn to answer me, Eris suddenly said, not knowing what he thought of. You are my prisoner now, sir. But you can't pry my mouth open, as long as I don't want to. If you don't believe me, you can try. You want to know how much we have figured out, so that you can make up a perfect story that does not involve the family before the trial comes, right? Ian guessed Eris's thoughts with a smile, and seeing the other party's face darken in an instant, he agreed. It's a fair deal, just ask. Don't look at me with that doubtful look. I have no animosity towards the Derry family. If you can really clear the family of ties, that's your ability. How about it? Want to play this question and answer game with me? How did you find out that the matter was related to us? Did Black Falcon tell you? Eris started asking questions without hesitation. These are 2 questions, my friend. I choose to answer the latter one. When I first met Black Falcon, he was already a corpse, and I think Black Falcon has never told anyone about your secret, not even his adopted son. Impossible. Before his death, Mountain Weasel swore that he would only tell the secret to Black Falcon. If Black Falcon didn't tell you, how would you know the truth? This time I ask the question, sir. This is the rule of the game you set. Ian stretched out a finger and shook it. Sir Eris snorted and nodded. Chapter 63, Quiz Game, Part 2. Who is the knight who killed Black Falcon? Ian asked. This information is the key to his completion of Optional Mission 1. No, I won't answer you this question. Eris shook his head immediately. I won't betray my companions. The ghost of White Wall City is finished. Sir Wilder has deployed 100 people here, waiting for the arrival of your caravan, and Dorian, the adopted son of Black Falcon, has gathered all the forces of the Black Falcon mercenaries yesterday, and set out on the road to Tammin Village. You can't save any of them, but you still have hope to save your family. Eris was silent for a moment, and said a name. It's Sir Ryan Shett. If you are willing to answer more detailed, in return, I will also answer your questions more detailed. Ian tempted. He is a member of the Shett family branch in Seagull Town. Like me, he has been a servant in the Grafson family since he was a child. This time, he joined this bandit group out of his desire for wealth like us. After Black Falcon discovered our secret and threatened us, Darren gave him the task of silencing Black Falcon. Ding. Ian heard the system prompt in his mind. Excuse me, Ian said to Eris, then walked quickly around the corner of the cellar, closed his eyes, and began to check the system interface. Only then did he realize that the optional mission had been updated. Optional Mission 1, The Truth of Black Falcon's Death Mission Objective. Kill Sir Ryan Shett Mission Reward. Dorian will swear allegiance to you. Additional reward. Unknown. Annie. Ian called in his heart. Do I need to kill Ryan Shett in this mission objective? In the mission judgment, the player can kill the natives personally, or by his subordinates, those with employment relations, and collaborators. Anna's electronic voice responded. Even collaborators can be done. In other words, if Wilder's men kill Ryan Shett, it will be considered as my mission? Ian was a little surprised. After all, the ambush they set up in the abandoned fishing village would be a big melee, and Ian was not sure that he could kill a specific target personally, or with his own men. That's right. Even allied players can help each other complete tasks. Annie gave a positive answer. Okay, it's none of your business. You can continue to hang up. Ian opened his eyes again and quickly returned to Sir Eris. Did you pee there? Eris looked at Ian with disgust. My behavior just now did seem to be like going to the bathroom after being in a hurry. Yes, you will sleep with the smell of my urine tonight. Let's continue the game just now. How did Black Falcon discover your secret? Game rules, sir. This time it's my turn to ask questions. Of course, Eris would not be stupid enough to answer this question. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Ask Sir Eris. I'm listening. It's the same question as before. How did you find out that the ghost in White Wall City is related to us? I just told you a lot of things. I hope your answer won't disappoint me. Your answer just now wasn't very frank. But it doesn't matter. I can assure you that every word I told you is true, and every detail. The process of discovering the truth was actually very long, because the ways I got the information were very messy, including Black Falcon's adopted son Dorian, Sir Wilder just now, and some mercenaries. And the original book, Ian added in his heart. Of course, he couldn't say this aloud. I first came into contact with this matter from the death of Black Falcon. At that time, I happened to be staying at the Crossroads Inn. It's been less than a week. Not even enough for you to go to Tammen Village, Eris said sharply. Ian ignored Eris's surprise. After I checked the scene of Black Falcon's death, I found that the murderer came directly to silence him, and at that time his adopted son Dorian told me that Black Falcon already knew who the traitor was. So it is self-evident which group of forces killed him, but why did Black Falcon contact the other party alone when he brought 10 people? I can only think of two possibilities. One is that Black Falcon himself is a traitor. The fact that he was killed by acting alone at night is too consistent with the characteristics of a traitor, and it is hard not to suspect. The second is that Black Falcon discovered a secret that must not be told to anyone, and he was killed when he wanted to use this secret to threaten the other party. But this faces a problem. The ghosts of White Wall City are obviously a bandit group looking for the Blackfire treasure. What secrets can they have that are threatening enough? Eris looked at Ian silently without commenting. He even regretted that he revealed too early that Black Falcon was killed after threatening him with a secret. I had a guess about this problem after I talked with Sir Wilder, because Sir Wilder told me that he suspected the traitor was on his side. Ian continued, the core members on his side are all well-known knights of this generation. If Black Falcon discovered the identity of the traitor and threatened the knight, then Black Falcon's story would make sense. Black Falcon wore his best plate chain armor, and out of confidence in his own skills, he chose to go to the appointment alone in secret, but unexpectedly the other party had no intention of talking to him at all, and directly killed him with a military crossbow. Just based on the fact that the traitor is a certain knight, you still can't suspect us, right? Of course, after speculating to this point, I only have a preliminary judgment on the base of the ghost of White Wall City. There are 20 or 30 villages near White Wall City. Some of them are the fiefs of members of the Wilder Knight Alliance. If the ghost of White Wall City uses the fief of the traitor to play tricks on everyone, the problem of Sir Wilder and his team being unable to find the enemy's trace in the not so complex terrain near White Wall City is solved. But in this case, since the headquarters of the White Wall City ghosts is in a certain village, doesn't the only camp that was discovered suddenly become particularly conspicuous? Eris swallowed his saliva. Yes, the camp not far from Tammen Village was left by you on purpose, in order to create an illusion for Sir Wilder and his men, that the ghosts of White Wall City were camping in the wild. It is precisely because that camp was your cover that you were able to evacuate the camp in such an orderly manner in such a short time without leaving any goods behind. What does it mean that the camp is close to Tammen Village? It is entirely possible that someone deliberately came to Tammen Village and left it there. After all, the patrol team of Tammen Village reported to Sir Wilder as soon as they found the traces of the robbers, didn't they? Eris retorted in a low voice. So my plan at the time was to try to go for a field investigation. After having a suspected target, clues are always easy to find. Let Bronn go for a field investigation. Ian corrected himself in his heart. He would not take such a risk. Chapter 64, Quiz Game, Part 3. You're right, Eris said, and then he was silent for a moment, and then he seemed to think there was no need to hide it anymore. We shouldn't have let the mountain weasel leave alive at that time. We thought he didn't find anything, but we didn't expect the Black Falcon to threaten us soon after. But you haven't been to Tammen Village, have you? Eris changed the subject. Otherwise you can't think of walking out alive, he added in his heart. Fortunately, I quickly found other clues and didn't have to do this risky thing. What clues? The pitiful speed at which you moved the Blackfire treasure. Huh. You only have one caravan, and you can't even move the treasure with so few people. How did you move the looted goods? It can only be temporarily piled up in the village of the traitor. Eris answered in a muffled voice. He knew this was the only possibility. At this point, I have a guess. That is, the so-called Blackfire treasure does not exist, and the things you transfer to the abandoned fishing village are simply the precious goods you looted. It is this guess that made me suddenly enlightened. I don't understand. I have said enough. Think about how many questions you asked in the conversation just now. Ian stopped at this time. If you want to know the follow-up, I'm afraid you have to answer my questions first. You bastard, you transferred things to this abandoned fishing village, and there will be a boat to pick you up, right? Where are you going? Hearing this, Eris changed his relaxed attitude and became alert in an instant. You are very resistant to this question and you don't want to answer it. That won't do, my friend. We are now playing the game according to the rules you set. This is my respect for you, but if you don't respect me, then you can only continue according to my rules. Eris took a deep breath and calmed down. Of course we are going to Seagull Town. Where else can we go? We plan to sell things there and make a fortune. Lie. Ian interrupted Eris in a low voice, then met Eris's gaze and looked at him for 3 seconds. Finally, Eris lowered his head first. We plan to go to Bravos. Eris thought for a moment and said, we want to use this money to form a mercenary group there and then create our own world together. You know that my brother and I are illegitimate children, and Aaron is only the second son of Earl Grayson. We are born without the right of inheritance. A great reason, but I know you are still lying. This is not the rule of the game. Eris forced a smile. I'm only responsible for answering. As for whether you believe it or not, that is your business. After Eris finished speaking, he felt something was wrong. He was worried that the young man who captivated him would turn against him, so he added, anyway, what I said is the truth. Okay, let's continue the game. Ian clapped his hands. Eris looked at Ian in disbelief. He didn't expect that he would pass the test so easily, then continue to answer the question just now. What did you think after you found out that what we were transporting was just stolen goods and not the so-called Blackfire treasure? Eris said immediately. It's an old question that I've been wondering about for a long time. Where did the Blackfire treasure come from? Ian himself showed a ridiculous smile. From the time my mercenaries first mentioned this question, to when I asked Black Falcon's adopted son, to when I talked to Sir Wilder, it seemed that everyone was convinced that such a treasure existed. But after I sorted out all the inferences and clues about this treasure, I was surprised to find that all these things came from the same person, your brother Sir Simon. And coincidentally, when the Black Falcon mercenaries first asked all the local nobles for help about the bandit group that appeared near White Wall City, you ignored them. But when Sir Wilder saw the Black Dragon emblem on the other side during the battle, Derry City, which had not cared about worldly affairs for many years, actually sent reinforcement to Wilder and his men. Later, Sir Simon, who came to support on behalf of Derry City, quickly threw out the story of the Blackfire restoration treasure. While firmly grasping everyone's attention, it also proved that Sir Wilder was not wrong that night. He wanted everyone to firmly believe that what Wilder saw on your breastplate was a black dragon, not a red dragon. 7 layers of hell. Wilder remembered. Eris was shocked. No, that's just my inference. Ian finished speaking and then asked, can you tell me why you painted the red dragon on the breastplates there, Eris? Is this your new question? I guess so. Eris smiled bitterly. That's not what I painted. That's the plate armor of my uncle Genozzo Derry. He was the king's good of the Mad King Eris II. During the Battle of the Trident, he fought for Prince Rhaegar until his last breath. How did you get his armor? King Robert appreciated Uncle Genozzo's loyalty and bravery and ordered his body to be returned. Uncle Genozzo's plate armor was not damaged much due to its extremely high quality, so it was kept by my father. This is something Robert would do. Wait, what did I overlook before? Ian suddenly slapped his forehead. He realized that he should have noticed the abnormality of the Derry family earlier. Before, he asked Kaz and 2 local mercenaries to buy armaments at the Crossroads Inn. At that time, they went to Derry first, and then rushed to Hirenal after finding that there was nothing in Derry. My first reaction at that time was that the Derry family was loyal to the Targaryens, so they were suppressed to the greatest extent, so that they could not even recover some equipment from their fallen soldiers. This idea itself is not a problem. After all, for the Derry family, who are the heads of the previous dynasty. Whoever becomes the new ruler will be on guard against them. But I forgot that the new ruler of Westeros is Robert Baratheon. Young Robert will not. Young Robert is not the pot-bellied old man who appeared at the beginning of the original book, but a leader with great personal charm that his enemies can't help but like. Robert Baratheon simply disdains to eliminate the threat of surrendered enemies by disarming them, because all those who surrender to him will voluntarily charge for him. And the two people who were traveling with Chaos at that time were local mercenaries. Wouldn't the local mercenaries know if there were arms in Derry to sell? The only reason they chose to go to Derry first was that there were still weapons for sale there when they went there last time. But there were none this time. So where did all the abandoned weapons in Derry go? Of course, they could only be used to arm these ghosts that appeared out of thin air. I actually overlooked such an important clue. Ian pinched his eyebrows. If he had noticed this earlier, he would have avoided many detours. Ian sighed softly and then said to Eris, "Okay, I have no problem. No more. Are you sure?" Eris felt that happiness came so suddenly. "Do you think you have successfully saved your family?" Ian looked at him with sympathy. "What else? I'm just a bastard. If I was just a bandit, there's no way I could implicate my family, right? You weren't just a bandit." "Oh, sir, you've said you won't ask any more questions. The game is over. As promised, you have to let my family go. I really don't need to ask any more questions, because you answered the most important question at the beginning." Ian shrugged. "I asked you if you wanted to distance yourself from your family so as not to implicate them. You didn't deny it, which means you did something that would implicate your family. This..." Eris had a bad feeling in his heart. Think about it. What crime did a bastard commit to implicate the family? Ian continued to remind him. This time, Eris was struck by lightning. After a long pause, he stammered, "Only treason. If I'm right, after completing the transfer and loading of the materials, you plan to go directly to Pentos to join Viserys Targaryen, right? After all, he will marry his sister to a certain invincible Horse King. And the restoration of the Targaryen dynasty is the last hope for the Derry family and the Grayson family to regain their glory. How do you know about the Horse King?" Darren clearly said it. Eris was halfway through his speech when he suddenly realized that he had inadvertently confessed everything, and his face instantly lost all the blood. On the opposite side of him, Ian was also shocked. The statement of going to join Viserys was his boldest guess, based on the conclusion of only treason. After all, it takes about 3 or 4 months to travel from the vicinity of Ves Dothrak where the Horse King Drogo is to Pentos where Daenerys is. It is normal for Governor Illyrio, the protector of Viserys and his sister, to propose to the Horse King a year in advance, so this news is indeed possible to be passed to the ears of Ser Darren in advance. However, because these two people did not appear in the original book, Ian was not optimistic about this guess. Unexpectedly, he actually guessed it right. Then why didn't they come to the side of Viserys and his sister? Just as Ian was thinking, Eris's voice came again. "Can I ask one last question, sir?" Ian made a gesture of invitation. "Who are you? If things go well, I will be Ian Rivers, the younger brother of you and Cersei," Ian said as he grabbed Eris's hair. "Please, the comments section is right. If the plot is detailed and the volume is small, it will seem very dragged out. So today I will update 7,000 plus puzzle chapters of the Red Dragon and the Black Dragon part. Whether it is a new book period or not, whether it is recommended or not, we will talk about it later. Future readers are future matters. I will be responsible for the readers who are chasing the update first." Chapter 65 Ian's new plan. Hurry up. Sir Eris committed suicide by hitting his head against the wall. Ian's shout came from the cellar. Soon, Ian's squire Keith and Sir Roger Grey, the son of Sir Wilder, ran down. What happened? As soon as Roger entered the cellar, he first saw Ian half crouching on the ground, and then saw Sir Eris falling beside Ian. Roger stepped forward quickly and brought the torch close to Eris's face. Only then did he find that there was a big bloody hole on Eris's forehead, and the ground beside him was completely stained red with blood. "He's dead." He suddenly got excited and hit his head against the wall. Ian stood up. "I wanted to save him the first time, but he was too badly injured," Ian said, pointing to Eris's blood-soaked clothes. "I wanted to stop the bleeding for him, but failed. committed suicide by hitting his head against the wall. When we caught Aerys, we tied his hands and feet. How did he? Roger was halfway through his speech and suddenly noticed the untied ropes next to the body. Did you untie the ropes on him? Sir Roger was suddenly a little angry. I was interrogating him just now, and your father knew it. Ian pretended to be depressed, but Sir Aerys did not cooperate. He asked me to untie the ropes tied around him and give him the treatment a captured knight deserves. And you did that? Aren't you afraid that he will run away? He doesn't even have a right hand. How can he run away? Ian was also angry at this moment and just raised his voice slightly to suppress Sir Roger's aura. I just wanted him to confess more things. How the hell could anyone have thought that he would commit suicide? But the rebuttal just came to Roger's mouth, and he forced himself to swallow it back because he knew very well that if it weren't for this Sir Lucian who discovered the truth when his father began to implement the plan, once Derry City showed its fangs from behind, they would probably be doomed. Sorry, Sir Lucian, I was so anxious. The next moment, Sir Roger took the initiative to apologize. This is my fault. Ian shook his head, indicating that he didn't mind Roger's offense just now. So, what did you find out before Aerys committed suicide? A very scary story. Ian gave a dull smile. What? I think it is necessary to report this matter to the Iron Throne, because Aerys and his men are committing treason. Treason? Isn't that an exaggeration? Sir Roger opened his mouth wide. Aren't they just looting here? They plan to use the wealth looted in the past few months to form an army, to go to Pentos to surrender to the remnants of the Targaryen family. Just them? Do they want to use such a small number of people to take back the Iron Throne? Of course not. Just now, Aerys revealed a very terrible secret under my guidance. Illyrio, the governor of Pentos, arranged a marriage for the remnants of the Targaryen family. They will marry the sister of the beggar king to the most powerful horse king on the Dothraki Sea, and that horse king promised to help Viserys regain the throne. 7 levels of hell. I don't know if what he said is true, but we must report the matter to the Iron Throne as soon as possible. The fact that an army of 100,000 people is heading towards Pentos cannot be concealed. As long as your majesty can confirm this, he can confirm whether what Aerys just said is true. Don't the ghosts of Whitewall have another leader? The Sir Darren Grafson, that Simon confessed before. He should know a lot, right? If we can catch him and force him to confess. If it were you, would you confess to such a crime of treason? Just now, after Aerys accidentally let the cat out of the bag, he chose to commit suicide immediately because he was afraid that his family would be implicated because of this matter. Ian found a reason to cover up his lie. Of course, Sir Aerys could not have committed suicide. He was simply silenced by Ian. And besides him, all the others who knew that Ian Rivers, the illegitimate son of the Derry family, did not exist, would also be executed in the next treason charges. Forget it. Where is your father? I have to talk to him about these important issues. Ian did not continue to dwell on this issue and asked Sir Roger. Father, he just had an argument with Sir Beric lol. Sir Beric was the captain of the 1st mercenary cavalry we recruited. They have been waiting here for a week for the Blackfire treasure, and the result? Roger was a little helpless. He can't accept the fact that the Blackfire treasure doesn't exist. Ian quickly guessed the reason why Sir Wilder and the mercenaries quarreled. Yes. Sir Roger nodded. Sir Berry asked to pay him, based on the value of the Blackfire treasure of 10,000 gold dragons, and then the other mercenary cavalry who didn't have any extra ambitions also expressed their support for Sir Barry. But the Blackfire treasure doesn't exist at all. We only seized the 8 carts of goods in the basement of the abandoned fishing village, including 2 carts of high quality wine, 1 cart of high quality fur, half a cart of velvet, half a cart of raw silk, and a pair of deer antlers. They want 1,000 gold dragons. Is the total value of these things tonight 1,000 gold dragons? Ian didn't listen to Roger's words. No. Even if we transport all these things to a place where the price is higher, they can only be sold for about 500 gold dragons at most. If they are directly transported to King's Landing for processing, they can only be sold for less than 300 gold dragons. After saying this, Roger added in a tearful tone, if there is no such thing as the Blackfire treasure, we would have made a fortune just by giving us these hundreds of gold dragons to share. but once people's desires expand, it is difficult to take them back. Sir Beric is not a fool. He probably just wants to extort more. After all, if they are distributed according to the previous ratio, each of them can only get 1 or 2 gold dragons on average. Although it is not a small amount, the gap is too big. Ian shook his head. Like this, I'll go and help. Ian's next words made Sir Roger overjoyed. In fact, he came to the cellar with this purpose. Unfortunately, Ian did not really want to mediate. He was so proactive, actually wanting to add fuel to the fire. After all, Wilder's power now has an overwhelming advantage over Sir Darren Grafson's caravan, which is not conducive to Ian's new plan. Ian not only does not want Wilder and his men to capture Darren Grafson, but also wants to rescue him from the siege and gain his trust. Because he intends to use the second son of Earl Grafson as a key prop to obtain his new identity. Chapter 66 Main Mission 2. After a fierce argument, and after failing to obtain any symbolic concessions from Ian, Sir Beric and the Knight of the Bulwer family finally could not stand Ian's almost humiliating arrogance, and chose to take their people away, after accepting Ian's cash payment. So far, among the mercenaries found by Wilder, only 2 knights of the Fossoway family and their squires remained. Sir Wilder was not satisfied with this result, but considering the arrogance of Sir Lucien from the Lannister family, he could still understand that Sir Lucien did not compromise with the blackmailer. Moreover, since they had already figured out the details of the other party, the lack of these 10 cavalrymen did not affect their overwhelming advantage over the White Wall City caravan, so Wilder did not blame Ian in the end. The trap of the abandoned fishing village was deployed by Wilder himself, but Ian, under the banner of learning experience, found out all the deployment of troops near the fishing village. As night fell, just when Ian was about to end today's activities and go to bed, he found that the system task had been updated. Only then did he remember that a whole week had passed since he completed the first main mission. Main Mission 2, Legion Mission Description. To prepare for the upcoming war, you should accumulate your strength in advance mission target. Have more than 1000 soldiers mission reward. 20 points, 3 attribute points, 3 skill points, 2, in the area, A-level NPCs of your choice, accept, change, 1000 people. Is this such a big step? Ian blinked. Annie, are there any restrictions on the 1000 soldiers in this mission target? These 1000 people must be soldiers who are directly loyal to the player. If they are mercenaries, the player needs to sign a 10-year employment agreement with them. Annie replied. Ian was silent. Hiring 1000 mercenaries for 10 years is basically something that only a madman would do. In the absence of a fiefdom, there is no way to recruit 1000 soldiers, and no place to station them. Without thinking too much, Ian clicked, change, main mission 2, Lord Mission Description. Knight nobles are everywhere in Westeros. You should probably jump out of this class. Mission objective, obtain the title of Lord Mission reward. 20 points, 5000 gold dragons. Oh, is this a gift to me? Ian couldn't help but smile. This mission coincided with his new plan. Originally, the difficulty of the Lord mission was even greater than that of the Legion, because Westeros has a unique noble system. There is a common misunderstanding that the noble titles in Westeros are ranked according to the levels of Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, Baron, Knight, and Knight, but this is actually caused by not reading the original English version. In fact, in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, the noble titles in Westeros, note that they are titles, not actual status, are divided into only 3 levels: King, Lord and Sir, that is, King, Lord and Knight. As for the titles such as Duke Stark, Marquis Free, Earl Hightower, Viscount Bixbury, Baron Cowart, that people in China see when reading the original novel or watching the TV series. It is just that the Chinese translator of the original novel distinguished the lords with the title of Lord according to their strength, in order to let readers see at a glance what level the strength and status of this noble is. In this aristocratic system, the 2 titles below the King, Sir and Lord, represent the 2 classes of Knight nobles and Lord nobles. In most cases, it is impossible for the 2 classes to jump. For example, the Partanton family of Geuxing City are Knight nobles who are directly loyal to the Arryn family, the feudal lord of the Vale. Their strength is no less than that of many earls in the Vale. Their patriarch has the name of Knight of Jiuxing City and can easily summon a legion of thousands of people, but their title is still the same as the most ordinary hedge knight, sir. Another example is the Onion Knight Davos Seaworth. He was only knighted for his great feat of delivering food to Storm's End, which was besieged and out of ammunition and food, and helping Stannis Baratheon through the most difficult years. He was also nicknamed Onion Knight by other nobles. It was not until the outbreak of the War of the Five Kings that Stannis gave him the title of Earl of Rainwood in order to make him his Hand of the King, allowing him to complete the class jump. It is worth mentioning that Rainforest is not a real Earl fiefdom. Davos's Earl title actually comes from the position of Hand of the King. Stannis gave this fiefdom and this title to Davos. In fact, Rainforest was upgraded to an earldom because of Davos. Of course, the fact that the commander-in-chief of the Gold Cloaks helped King Joe to backstab Eddard Stark and was canonized as the Earl of Harrenhal is another matter. After all, it was the merit of following the dragon. Ian certainly has no way to make achievements like Davos or the commander of the Gold Cloaks, but now he has a ready-made title of Earl to pick up, that is, the title of the Derry family. Just last night, when Aerys Rivers admitted that their plan was to go to Pentos to join Viserys, Ian came up with a very bold idea, pretending to be a bastard of the Derry family, to join the Dragon Mother. The complete story is, as a bastard of the Derry family, he and his two brothers and the second son of Earl Graveson formed a bandit group to plunder the Riverlands. He wanted to raise a sum of money to form an army to join Viserys, but for some unknown reason, he was discovered by the enemy and failed. After that, the Derry family was destroyed for treason, and he came to Pentos with a small number of surviving men to join the true king. There are many obvious advantages to choosing such a story and identity. First, after the Derry family was destroyed for treason, the last bastard of the Derry family came to the true king and could naturally obtain the surname Derry in the title that originally belonged to the Derry family. Although the Derry family's current title is Sir, their Earl title was taken away by the usurper. From a legal point of view, when Ian became a vassal of the Targaryen family again, he should naturally restore the title of that year. The second benefit of this story is that when the plan of his bastard to build an army for Viserys failed, Illyrio did not have to worry about losing control of Viserys, because Viserys gained his own power, so it was easier for him to accept Ian's loyalty to Viserys. In fact, Ian suspected that the reason why Ser Darren Grayson and Ser Aerys Rivers did not appear beside Viserys in the original plot was because they brought too many people with them. They already had 50 cavalrymen, and after selling the wealth they plundered in the Riverlands, they could raise another army, which was almost equivalent to forming a guard for Viserys. Such a result was absolutely unacceptable to Governor Illyrio, a supporter of Aegon Bronn. Thirdly, this story is almost true. For a knight who claims to be the bastard of the Derry family, Illyrio certainly would not believe his one-sided words. Illyrio would definitely write a letter to entrust 8 Claude Spider Varys to investigate the matter. And Varys' investigation result can only be that such a looting team formed by the Derry family did appear in the Riverlands, and then these people were all executed for treason, and whether Ian Rivers, the bastard of the Derry family, existed became a matter of death without evidence. As long as Ian can get Ser Darren Grafson to testify for him at this time, his identity as the illegitimate son of the Derry family can be completely confirmed. The last benefit is that this can make those players who have been staring at the Dragon Mother feel confused. After all, it stands to reason that a illegitimate child who is not in the original book appears in front of the Dragon Mother. This person is likely to be a player, but what if this guy appears with the second son of Earl Grafson? They will only suspect that there is a deviation between this world and the timeline of the original book. Of course, even if a player is eyeing him, Ian is not very scared. With the power he has now, the other party can hardly find any way to threaten him except poisoning. Therefore, as long as he arranges a poison tester for himself, he can basically guarantee that he will not be plotted against by other players. P.S. I suddenly became positive yesterday. I had a high fever as soon as I got home at night. I slept until noon today. I'm still dizzy now. Brothers must protect themselves. Chapter 67, Battle of the Abandoned Fishing Village, Part 2. Although he had made up his mind, Ian still clicked on the change button under main thread 2 and decided to check all the possibilities. Main thread 2. Become rich task description. Hayek believes that money is the greatest tool of freedom invented by mankind. Only money is open to the poor, while power never is. And you want to prove that money itself is a kind of power. Task target. Total wealth exceeds 10,000 gold dragons. Task reward. 20 points, 6 attribute points, 3 skill points, accept, change. Oh, this. Can I get all 3 tasks in main thread 2? I already have more than 3,000 gold dragons, including the stolen goods seized from the ghosts of the White Wall City, that I will soon get. If I get the 5,000 gold dragons rewarded by Lord, it will be no problem to earn 10,000 gold dragons, or buy 1,000 slave soldiers. No, Annie said ruthlessly. Okay. Ian smiled awkwardly. He didn't have much hope. In the end, Ian switched main thread 2 back to Lord and clicked to accept. After scrolling back and confirming that the bounty mission had not been updated, Ian, who had long been sleepy, quickly fell asleep. In the next 2 days, Ian's net at the crossroads in brought him another head. His men successfully killed a player, gained 2 points, seized 1 point, and gained an additional strength point. The updated profile card became Ian, strength 27, agility 24, mental strength 3 skills, etiquette basics, common language reading and writing basics, advanced swordsmanship, advanced horsemanship. Intermediate lance attribute points. 0 skill points. 0 points. 22 During this period, the caravan of the White Wall City Ghost had not arrived, so Ian just found an abandoned courtyard to continue learning swordsmanship from Luo. When the settlement report of the 10th day was sent to Ian's mailbox at midnight, he found that the number of players left had reached 75. The speed of player elimination was basically consistent with Ian's prediction. When the main task could not be completed, many players chose to get rid of the threat of the assassination mechanism of the leaderboard by hunting down the agreed allies. It was the 3rd day after Ian and his men took over the abandoned fishing village. The scouts deployed by Sir Wilder near the King's Road had discovered the 8-cart caravan early on and rushed back to the fishing village to report the situation. After receiving the news, Wilder immediately deployed all the cavalry to a hill south of the fishing village and hid them there for outflanking. The archers were deployed on the roofs of the buildings in the fishing village, and the conscripted infantry all hid inside the buildings of the fishing village. According to the confession of Sir Simon, who surrendered first, they would use hand gestures and secret codes to connect with the caravan in advance, so Wilder used threats and inducements to pull the sentry in charge of secret codes in the fishing village, Ricebug, into his camp. According to Wilder's plan, it would be perfect if they could successfully lure the other party into the fishing village, so that they could completely offset the opponent's cavalry advantage and involve the other party in street fighting. Even if it is not possible, as long as the enemy can be led into the temporary path opened on the reeds and calamus in this wetland, the enemy's activity space can be compressed to the maximum extent. 3 hours after Wilder's scout reported, Sir Darren Grafson's caravan appeared in the sight of the ambushers in the fishing village. Everything was just as Wilder planned. The other side first sent a cavalryman to communicate with the rice worm who was aimed at by 3 bows behind him, and then all the members dismounted and set foot on the path leading to the fishing village. Although it is unknown why the leader of the caravan suddenly became alert when arriving at the entrance of the village, he sent 3 people into the village in advance to find out the situation, but it was too late. The attack of the ambush came so suddenly. First, a dense rain of arrows shot out from the fishing village, and then a large number of spearmen rushed out with a shield wall. Although the defense of the ghost caravan was organized very hastily, the excellent combat quality and sophisticated equipment still allowed them to barely block the advancement of the enemy's shield wall. The guards of the caravan either hid in the middle of the caravan to compress the opponent's moving space, to reduce the number of enemies they had to face at the same time, or scattered into the reeds next to them, and then went around the side of the enemy's shield wall to attack it. In just a few minutes, the aggressive Wold infantry team showed a tendency to waver. Seeing this, Sir Willie Ward took the lead and rushed into the caravan of the White Wall Ghost. This time the raid was led by him and Sir Roger, the son of Sir Willie. although they were nearly twice as many as the enemy in number, and the enemy's caravan was trapped in the wetland and the cavalry could not be deployed, such a raid was still a dangerous action. Because the group of conscripts behind them was unreliable, for these guys, as long as there was a slight disadvantage in the battle, it could turn into a rout. Therefore, the leader of the commando needed to show courage and strength that was inspiring. After Sir Willy rushed out of the shield wall, the enemy also discovered him at the first time. A knight saw Sir Willy's leadership position in this commando and immediately rushed straight to him. The knight passed through the gap between two carts and came to Sir Willy, stabbing him in the chest with a sword. Facing the enemy's sword, Sir Willy did not dodge, but directly swung the meteor hammer in his hand and hit the opponent's head. The knight did not dare to exchange injuries, so he could only temporarily change his direction of action and hide to one side, while Sir Willy took this opportunity to kick him. Because the ground was too muddy and slippery, the knight fell to the ground as soon as he was kicked. Sir Willy did not give the opponent any time to react, and raised the meteor hammer again to hit his head. This time, Sir Willy's meteor hammer hit the knight's face, and the face helmet worn on the knight's head could not save him, because the spikes on Willy's meteor hammer just passed through the eye slit on his face armor and directly pierced one of the knight's eyes. Under the severe pain, the knight had no chance to fight back, and was stabbed in the neck by Sir Willy's dagger. The next moment, Ian, who was hiding at a high point behind the fishing village and secretly watching the battle, heard the system prompt sound in his mind. Complete optional mission 1. The truth about the death of Black Falcon. Mission difficulty rating, medium. Mission reward, after you tell Dorian everything, you will gain his loyalty. Additional reward, 3 points, 3 attribute points. Is that guy Sir Iron Shetter? Ian thought to himself. He did not rush to deal with the layout problem, but cast his sights on a wetland with tall reeds. That was the direction Ian was in charge of, and his men were deployed there to intercept the enemies who tried to escape through the wetland. Chapter 68, Battle of the Abandoned Fishing Village, Part 3. Sir Darren Grafson has already started to regret. If he had not hesitated, because of the stinginess of these goods, and rationally chose to issue the order to retreat at the first time, he would only need to leave 3 to 5 people behind to cover the retreat of the large army. The bad terrain here would not only limit himself, but also limit the pursuers in the fishing village. But it was just those few minutes of hesitation that made him lose the power of choice. Now more than half of his troops are involved in the fight. If he retreats now, it means abandoning them. It's not that Darren is unwilling to abandon these companions. The key is that Sir Simon, their undercover in the Wilder Alliance, mentioned one thing in the letter before Wild has summoned a lot of mercenary cavalry. Wilder's cavalry did not appear here, which means that they must have been deployed to a certain position outside the fishing village, waiting to show up and beat him up after he was defeated and fled. Rather than withdrawing with less than half of his men to compete with those elite cavalry, Darren would rather fight to the death here and face the mob in front of him. Spread out to both sides. Go through the reeds to surround them from behind. Sir Darren ordered the remaining men around him who had not yet been involved in the battle. An inch longer is an inch stronger. Facing an enemy using spears, a frontal battle on the trail was very disadvantageous for Darren's side. He needed to destroy the enemy's shield wall and drag them into a melee before the fact that Sir Iron Shet was killed by the enemy leader had an irreversible impact on his morale. As long as the formation of the opposing mob did not exist, the situation would soon turn into a one-sided massacre. Under Sir Darren's order, more than 10 dismounted cavalry quickly dispersed into the reeds on both sides of the trail, then quickly moved forward and rushed out from the sides and backs of the conscripts. They only launched a charge, and the formation of the Wild Alliance conscripts collapsed on the spot. The two sides fought together, which forced the archers in the fishing village to stop shooting. As expected of cavalrymen, they are so skilled in outflanking tactics even after dismounting. Seeing this scene, Ian, who was hiding on a high point in the fishing village, commented, "I originally thought they would retreat, so that our cavalry would stop them on the periphery of the trail, and divide and annihilate them." Wilder's mood was much heavier than Ian's. I can only say that Sir Darren is not stupid. He did not fall for your trick. He chose to fight to the death with our infantry. This is the best choice. Ian shrugged. Hurry up and order the cavalry on the periphery to dismount and enter the trail to attack the enemy's rear, otherwise you will lose your army. As he said, Ian pointed to the conscripts who were already showing signs of defeat. Wilder nodded and glanced at the attendant beside him. The attendant immediately understood what Sir Wilder meant and ran away quickly. It's time to attack. Sir Wilder put on his helmet and asked Ian, do you want to join us? Generally speaking, I don't like to get myself involved in dangerous situations. Ian smiled and shook his head. Sir Wilder was not angry because of Ian's refusal. After calling several guards who stayed in the fishing village with him, he drew his sword and rushed out of the fishing village. On the battlefield, Wilder's side fell into a huge disadvantage. After Darren's outflanking tactics successfully disintegrated the shield wall of the conscripts, several of Darren's good players rushed into the conscripts like a tiger into a flock of sheep. Among them, old Sir Shalet was even more murderous. He first seriously injured Sir Roger, the son of Wilder, in a one-on-one battle, forcing the latter to be carried away, and then killed 6 spearmen in succession, making the soldiers on Wilder's side tremble with fear when they saw him. Just as Sir Shalet was about to end the 7th enemy he had killed today, a half-sword blocked Sir Shalet's attack and saved the soldier. Shalet looked up and found that it was a guy who looked older than himself. Wilder's conscripts immediately burst into cheers. There was no doubt that Sir Wilder and his guards joining the battlefield gave these people a shot in the arm. Back off, the battlefield is not the place for you, old man, Sir Shalet said to Wilder, and then laughed an unpleasant laugh like a drake. This is what your son just said to me, and now his elderly father has to go to the battlefield himself for his incompetence? You will pay the price for this, Sir Wilder replied with a dark face. His son's life and death are uncertain now, and he didn't expect the other party to rub salt into his wounds with this matter. Come on, Wilder, I have long wanted to see the power of the guy who can cut off the arm of Eris wearing Genozzo's armor, Shalet said as he approached Wilder, ready to attack him. However, Wilder's sword drawing speed far exceeded Shalet's expectations. Before Shalet could make a move, he saw the tip of the opponent's sword pointing directly at his face. Shalet could only retreat quickly, but Sir Wilder's continuous stabs followed, and Shalet was forced back to the front of the convoy. Fortunately, at this time, another dismounted cavalryman attacked Sir Wilder from the side with a sword, forcing him to retreat, and Shalet got a brief respite. However, just when Shalet was about to give up the plan of a duel, and was about to call on his companions to besiege Wilder, he suddenly heard a cry for help from Darren behind him. It turned out that the cavalry deployed on the periphery under Wilder had dismounted and entered the path leading to the fishing village and surrounded them from behind. Sir Darren, who had been staying in the middle of the convoy and did not go forward to join the battle, would soon face a large number of enemies. Shalet looked around and wanted to find a few people to go back and rescue the young master, but he was soon disappointed because all their men were caught in the melee and could not get out. Seeing that the enemy was less than 30 meters away from the convoy, Sir Darren also fell into despair. He had never been a qualified warrior. Although he was the leader of this bandit group, he was not as strong as Sir Eris. His hobbies are business and sailing. The last time he attended the Merchant Guild dinner of Trade Governor Valyria in Pentus, he accidentally heard about the engagement between the Targaryen princess and the legendary Horse King, so he had the idea of taking this opportunity to revitalize the family. He found his best brother, Eris Rivers, who had been a servant of the Grayson family, to discuss this matter, and finally decided to plunder in the Riverlands together and use the money they robbed to form an army to join Viserys. I didn't expect that things had come to this point, and I would be defeated here, said Darren. Suddenly, Darren heard a shout from the reeds next to him. Who is it? Said Darren. Come here quickly, my master asked me to save you. The voice in the reeds came again, igniting a glimmer of hope in Darren's heart. Who is your master? Is it Ares? Darren asked anxiously. It's Sir Ares' brother. The other party replied. Sir Simon? Darren didn't hesitate anymore and dived into the reeds. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Sir Simon's Ambition, Part 1. Seeing that Darren Grafson suddenly went into the reeds, The knight from the Fossoway family who was in charge of commanding the Wilder cavalry immediately dispatched 6 people to chase him. Then he personally led the remaining troops to attack the rear of the White Wall City Ghost caravan, and the members of the bandit group were immediately attacked from both sides. In addition, the leader Sir Darren had lost his trace. Soon, except for a few elites around Sir Shalit, the other bandits began to flee in the reeds. Darren Grafson followed Roll through the reeds, and soon got rid of the pursuers who couldn't find the direction behind him. Afterwards, Roll, who was familiar with Wilder's deployment of troops in the reeds, took Darren around the abandoned fishing village, and came to a river beach east of the fishing village. There was a fishing boat on the riverbank. Roll took Darren to the fishing boat, and then went to the north bank. Of course, Ian couldn't come to rescue Sir Darren himself. He was originally cooperating with Wilder and the others as a brain trust, so he had always stayed in the safest position in the abandoned fishing village. If he suddenly disappeared, it would inevitably raise many questions. In contrast, Roll, who was originally sent by Ian to squat outside the reeds, became the most suitable person to rescue Sir Darren. Next, he only needed to let Roll control Sir Darren, and then find an opportunity to meet him as soon as possible. "You are safe, Sir Darren." After the fishing boat was about tens of meters away from the shore, Roll said to the frightened Sir Darren, "Thank you, sir." Sir Darren panted and thanked him quickly. He did not call Roll a knight, because at this moment Roll was only wearing an ordinary armored suit. This was also Ian's arrangement, so that even if Wilder's people saw Roll's figure from a distance, they would not associate him with the attendant old dog who always wore light green full body armor beside Sir Lucian. "Sir, you saved my life. You are a warrior. I should knight you. You should thank my master. He saved you." Raoul rejected Darren's kindness. "Well, where is your master, Sir Simon?" Raoul asked immediately. "I have a lot of questions that need to be explained to him." Although he was saved by Sir Simon's men, they are now in such a predicament. Simon, who should have known the actions of Wilder and others, should bear the primary responsibility. Darren thought he needed to find out how the illegitimate brother of the Derry family messed up. Sir Simon, the traitor? It was he who betrayed us. He led Wilder and others to attack the fishing village in advance and killed Sir Eris. "What did you say? Eris is dead?" Darren was startled and took a step back. He almost fell into the water. He staggered several times until Raoul helped him up and let him stabilize his body. "And didn't you say you were Sir Simon's man? Why did you say Simon betrayed us?" Darren asked strangely. "My master is Sir Ian Rivers, another brother of Sir Eris," Luoer explained. "I have never heard Eris mention such a brother." The alertness in Darren's eyes became even stronger. Sir Ian was not born to the mother of Sir Eris and Sir Simon. It was not until half a year ago that Sir Raymond introduced Sir Ian to Sir Eris and Sir Simon, but Sir Eris and Sir Simon have always been reluctant to recognize this brother. Eris is a proud man. If he is unwilling to recognize that Ian Rivers, it can only mean that his half-brother is a waste. Darren snorted lightly, but then he felt that his words were not appropriate. He had just been saved by someone, and he turned around and called him a waste. This was somewhat unworthy. He wanted to apologize, but the pride of being a high-ranking noble made him unable to say that word to a low-ranking servant. Fortunately, Luoer did not let him struggle for too long. Of course, that was only the beginning. In the subsequent interactions, Sir Eris gradually changed his attitude towards Sir Ian. This sentence belongs to the category of Luoer's improvisation. The reason why Ian dared to entrust such an important task to Luoer was because Luoer's brain was really good. Then why didn't Eris mention this brother to me? I don't know, sir. Luoer shook his head. Maybe you should talk to my master about these issues in person. Where is your master? Is he waiting for us on the north bank? No, he is hiding from the pursuit of Sir Simon's men. Now I don't know where he is, but as long as he gets rid of Simon's pursuers, he will naturally come to the north bank to find us. Why did Sir Simon chase him? And why did Sir Simon betray us? This is a long story. Sir Eris revealed your plan to my master and Sir Simon not long ago. Eris swore not to tell anyone. Darren interrupted Luoer. Oh, I don't know about that. Anyway, he said it. After all, they are Sir Eris's brothers, right? Darren nodded helplessly, accepting this explanation. Sir Simon expressed strong opposition to the plan at the time. He was afraid of the possible consequences of this matter. This is indeed like Simon's style. He has always been cowardly. This is why I asked Eris to swear not to tell anyone in advance. He still trusts his brother too much. Then what? Then Sir Eris successfully persuaded Simon to agree to continue to serve your plan. But no one expected that Sir Simon turned around and betrayed Sir Eris and chose to inform Wilder and others. My master speculated that the purpose of Sir Simon doing this was to gain merit in front of the Iron Throne. After all, as long as Sir Simon personally testified that Sir Raymond Derry personally led the rebellion, his father and brother would be executed for treason. And at that time, as a loyal supporter of the Baratheon family who sacrificed his relatives for the sake of justice, King Robert would definitely give him the surname Derry and let him inherit the city of Derry. Asshole, Sir Derry cursed on the spot. In this way, my master will naturally become a thorn in Sir Simon's side. So he asked me to save you for another important purpose. He needs your help. But I have already lost my cavalry. I don't know how else I can help him. Darren's words were hesitant. Although he kept expressing his gratitude and life-saving grace, when Raul really asked him to help with something, his first reaction was to refuse. Chapter 70 Sir Simon's Ambition, Part 2. Prevent Sir Simon from going to King's Landing to testify for this matter. I think your goal and my master should be the same on this issue, right? Once Simon and Wilder report all the evidence to the Iron Throne, the Grafson family will not be able to escape this disaster. What does this have to do with the Grafson family? I haven't been caught, Sir Darren said stubbornly. Don't forget that several of your knights fell into the encirclement just now. Raul reminded. As long as they don't catch me, we can insist that this matter has nothing to do with the Grafson family. As for the knights under my command, Sir Eris has been a squire in Seagull Town for many years. Why can't those people be invited to help by him, based on his personal connections? After Darren finished speaking, he looked at Raul, as if hoping to gain his approval. I don't know, sir. Raul's answer disappointed Darren. I'm just a guard. I don't understand these things. Anyway, my master said that, if you don't cooperate with him, the Grafson family will be finished. Darren was silent. After a moment, he asked hoarsely, what do you need me to do? I don't know, sir. I'm just a guard. Raul was relieved to see that Darren was successfully frightened by his words, because he didn't have to force him to stay. My master will come soon, and you can talk to him then. It's all over. Ian cut the rope tied to Sir Simon, who had just been escorted out of the cellar. Thanks to you, we have wiped out the ghosts that have plagued this land for several months. Sir Lucian, Simon smiled. I have done everything you asked me to do. Can you fulfill your promise and let me go? Didn't I do that? Ian pointed to the cut ropes on the ground. Huh, you mean, I'm free? Simon was overjoyed. It should have been so, but unfortunately we just got some bad news from the interrogation. No. Seeing that Ian was going to go back on his word, Simon screamed, you can't do this. I have been cooperating with you from the beginning. No matter what bad news you get, it has nothing to do with me, right? I have been locked up there by you all the time. It has nothing to do with you? Ian sneered. You are quite good at pretending. What did you answer when I asked you what the purpose of your bandit group was? Eris said he wanted to plunder a sum of money to form a mercenary group to go to Essos. I thought that if Eris left Westeros, if something happened to our legitimate brother in the future, maybe I could inherit the city of Derry, so I chose to help him. Simon replied. You still want to hide it now? Hide? No, Sir Lucian, every word I said is true. Simon quickly defended himself. Do you take me for a fool? Darren Grafson himself has admitted that you are looting here in order to form an army to go to Pentos to join Viserys. Viserys? Who is that? Simon was a little confused. Damn it. The remnant of the Targaryen family. Oh, you mean the Beggar King? Simon showed a helpless expression. Are you kidding? What can the Beggar King have that is worthy of Eris? And said Darren to join him. So you plan to play dumb forever? No. Simon looked at Ian's gloomy face, his heart pounding. I just don't understand. Viserys will marry his sister to the most powerful Horse King in Dothraki, and that Horse King will provide him with a large army to return to Westeros. 7 levels of hell. Damn it. Simon realized that the other party was not joking, and he immediately cursed. Sir Lucian, I want to see Eris. Let me go to see him. What do you mean? Did you just find out about this? Seven gods, I didn't know their plan at all. I didn't know at all. I was fooled by Eris. I'm also a victim. As the most important member of the plan, you don't know their plan? I hope your majesty can listen to your explanation. Sir Simon fell to his knees and hugged Ian's legs. Believe me, Sir Lucian, believe me, I really didn't know. It was that bastard Eris who deceived me. Looking at the bulging blue veins on Sir Simon's forehead and his bloodshot eyes, Ian pretended to be moved by him. Okay, I can feel that what you said is true, but what's the use of me just believing you? Your brother's treason will definitely be reported to the Iron Throne, and you have been undercover in Sir Wild's alliance for so long. It is not easy to extricate you from this crime, unless... Can you save me? Simon keenly grasped the turning point in Ian's words. If we change the story, that you were captured in Sir Willy Ward's castle, and then forced to cooperate with us too, that you accidentally discovered your father and brother's treasonous plan, and took the initiative to find Sir Wilder for help to stop those rebels, wouldn't you become a loyal royalist? Simon's eyes suddenly burst into a ray of hope, but the next moment he said uncertainly, but even if you are willing to save me, Sir Wilder and his men know the truth. Will they be willing to help me hide it? Before, Sir Darren Grafson proposed a deal to us. He was willing to pay a ransom of 1,000 gold dragons in exchange for his freedom, and asked us not to mention the Grafson family when reporting the matter to the Iron Throne. Where does he get 1,000 gold dragons? He promised to sell his ship. Did you agree to it? Not yet, because Sir Wilder and his men want the credit of defeating the rebellion and warning the Iron Throne of possible future invasions more than gold dragons. Your brother refuses to tell us anything, so we must escort Sir Darren to King's Landing to attract the attention of the Iron Throne. So, Simon still didn't understand Ian's guidance. But if you, as the illegitimate son of Sir Raymond, are willing to go to King's Landing in person, to identify your father and brother, then Sir Wilder and I can get the ransom of Sir Darren and the credit for defeating the rebellion. Ian patted Simon on the shoulder. You want me to betray my family? Simon trembled for a moment. Anyway, they don't consider you one of their own, do they? And think about it, if your father and brother are executed or exiled to the wall for treason, who would be more suitable to be the new master of Derry City than you who are loyal? Chapter 71 Dealing with all parties. P.S. I made a mistake yesterday on the issue of blonde and black hair, and was reminded by readers, it is normal for a blonde to have blonde hair, as long as the black one has a recessive gene. The Baratheon family is an exception and only has black hair. It may be magic, so I modified the first 2 chapters, and cancelled the setting, that the protagonist needs to dye his hair. Let Sir Simon testify in court. Are you kidding? After hearing Ian's plan, Sir Wilder's first reaction was absurd. If it weren't for the rubbish under your men who failed to catch Darren Grafson, would we still have to resort to this desperate measure? Ian took the initiative to blame, and put the blame on Sir Wilder's head. If Sir Eris hadn't committed suicide, even if Sir Eris hadn't committed suicide, he would never have accused his family. Otherwise, why do you think he would commit suicide immediately after accidentally revealing the truth? Ian said, as far as the current situation is concerned, letting Simon take the initiative to identify the crimes of his father and brother is our only way to impress the Iron Throne. But this is not honorable. Sir Wilder was still a little hesitant. Dishonorable? You, who watched this generation being plundered by the ghosts of White Wolf for more than 3 months, in order to prevent the big powers from interfering with the Blackfire treasure, have the nerve to mention honor. There are more dishonorable things to come. Dishonorable, but full of benefits. What? My promise to Simon was false. The purpose was to lure him into admitting their treason, but you must deny the part about him actively coming to you for help. After he finishes speaking, you must tell the truth, that Sir Simon was actually forced to cooperate with you, after you discovered and captured him, and then accuse Simon of committing the same treason as his father and brother. Simon is also a key figure who knows that Ian Rivers does not exist. How could I keep him to inherit Derry City? Ian added in his heart. 7 layers of hell. This is really dishonorable. Ian said before Sir Wilder. This is dishonorable, but what kind of honor do we need to talk about with a group of robbers and traitors? The gallows is their due end. Everything we do is to execute the judgment of the world on behalf of the Heavenly Father. Just imagine, after the Derry family was eradicated because of the rebellion, who in the world is more suitable to be the new owner of Derry City than you, who have the first merit in suppressing the rebellion and have the greatest influence in the Crossroads generation? Sir Wilder's breath stagnated, and he continued, Sir Raymond has a son, Lyndman Derry, who is only a few years old. Your Majesty may not deprive him of his inheritance. So isn't it reasonable for Sir Simon to kill his parents in order to inherit Derry City? Demon. Wilder suddenly felt a fear from the bottom of his heart, but the next moment, he nodded, indicating that he knew what he should do. Sir Ian, thank you for saving my life. Darren looked at this knight, who was much younger than he thought, and thanked him politely and formally. Sir Darren, I often hear my brother talk about you. Ian gave Sir Darren a hug as soon as they met, which made Darren quite uncomfortable. What did Eris say about me? Darren asked curiously. Are you sure you want to hear it? Ian showed a half smile. Oh, damn, that bastard must have said a lot of bad things about me. Darren just smiled, and when he thought of Eris's death, the smile quickly froze on his face. Unfortunately, Brother Eris has been killed by the traitor Simon. Ian's face was also sad. The dead are gone. Let's hurry up and discuss how to stop Simon and Wilder from going to King's Landing. I don't have anyone to mobilize now. Although we still have a small number of brothers left in Tammin Village, I believe Simon must have sent people to deal with them a long time ago. I wonder how many people you have. Are you sure you can stop Wilder and others? Darren asked a series of questions quickly. Do you still have illusions about this? Said Darren. What illusions? If you were Simon, and you decided to betray your brother and family after getting the news about the rebellion, would you only reveal the news to a wealthy knight like Wilder? No, I will send ravens to King's Landing and report directly to the Iron Throne. So King's Landing will send someone to pick them up. Darren's face turned pale, and then he looked at Ian viciously. So what you asked the guard to say about saving my family was a joke? On the contrary, I have saved your family. What do you mean? As long as you are alive, the Grafson family is still there, isn't it? We will go to Pentus's plan to surrender to the last true king of the Targaryen family. When His Majesty leads the army of the Horse King back to Westeros, the Grafson family will not only take back Gulltown, but also the Eyrie. At that time, you only need to marry the daughter of a great nobleman, find 10 or 8 lovers, and give birth to 100 sons. Who dares to say that the Grafson family is not one of the most powerful families in Westeros? But we have lost our wealth and army. Darren hesitated. How many people did you originally plan to recruit? 500. How many Dothraki cows are there? I don't know. There are many different opinions. Some say 40,000, and some say 100,000. 100,000 is the total population of Drogo's entire Carraress, including women, children, and slaves. Ian thought to himself. No matter how many tens of thousands, our 500 people are not worth mentioning compared to them, right? You didn't understand the point. In fact, our Westeros noble status is what His Majesty values. He needs vassals from Westeros. Darren was tempted. He did retreat in his heart after being ambushed in the fishing village. But Ian's words at this moment made him feel enlightened. He even wondered if his decision to try to increase his voice by forming an army was wrong from the beginning. As long as you join the Beggar King early enough and successfully enter his royal council, how could you lack the right to speak? How about it? Darren, what's your decision? Let's go to Pentus together. Darren nodded. So, where's your ship? We'd better leave Westeros before the Iron Throne takes action against Gulltown and Derry City. Well, my ship will not arrive at the abandoned fishing village on the south coast until a month later. What did you say? This was something Ian didn't expect. My white mouth is on a trade voyage. It departs from Gulltown, stops at Pentus, Tyrosh and lies, and its destination is Volantis. Then it will return to King's Landing, and after selling all the goods, it will continue to go north to pick us up, and our goods at the abandoned fishing village. At that time, we will just transport almost all the goods stored in Tammin Village to the abandoned fishing village. Nimmer. What a time management master. Chapter 72 Bounty Mission 2. This is bad news. If Darren's ship can only arrive in King's Landing after more than half a month, then they will definitely not be able to get the ship back. Because by that time, Wilder and others have already reported the complete evidence of this matter to the Iron Throne. King Robert Baratheon, who has gradually become narrow-minded due to his age, will definitely take thunderous actions against the two rebel families as soon as possible when he lacks a sense of security after his adoptive father Jon Arryn just died. At that time, Darren's white mouth flying the flag of the Grayson family's burning tower may not be able to enter the port of King's Landing at all and will be rushed out by the royal fleet to confiscate it. This is a huge loss for Ian, because according to Darren, the white mouth can sail to Volantis, and the value of such a ship is at least more than 1,000 gold dragons. Of course, there is also a good side to this matter, that is, when Darren loses all his power, he is completely under Ian's control. Ian directly arranged for Owl to take him to Duskendale town and asked them to wait there for him to deal with the matters at hand before looking for them. Next, Ian accepted the loyalty of Dorian, the new Black Falcon, who had captured Tammin Village and seized half of the remaining stolen goods in Tammin Village and returned to the Black Falcon mercenaries' resident castle. He also dealt with his own board and added the 3 attributes previously obtained through the truth of the death of Black Falcon to his mental power. Ian, strength 27, agility 24, mental power 6 skills, etiquette basics, common language reading and writing basics, advanced swordsmanship, advanced horsemanship, intermediate lance attribute points. 0 skill points. 0 points. 25. Then Ian summoned Dorian and Wilder together and redivided the spoils without concealing that he was Dorian's master. In the final distribution plan, Ian received a total of 400 gold dragons from both sides. During this week, the speed at which the number of players decreased also stagnated. Until the 16th day after the start of the game, the number of remaining players finally remained at 72 people temporarily, and Ian's net at the crossroads did not bring him any new gains. While completing the division of the spoils, Sir Wilder's men had also found a large number of victims of the caravans that had been looted and prepared the worthless goods to be handed over as evidence. At this point, the preparations for Sir Wilder to go to King's Landing were all completed. Ian did not go with Sir Wilder and his men. He told Sir Wilder not to mention his existence, because only when all the credit was added to Sir Wilder alone would Sir Wilder's chance of obtaining Derry City be large enough. Ian's move once again won Sir Wilder's gratitude. After Sir Wilder set off, Ian asked Dorian the Black Falcon to personally lead a team of reliable mercenaries to follow Sir Wilder and his team, and told him that if the Iron Throne's verdict on this rebellion was to allow Sir Simon to wear black clothes, he must kill him on Simon's way north to the wall. For safety, Ian assigned Bronn and Shigan to Dorian. Then Ian returned to the Crossroads Inn. He gave 2 months' wages in advance to the mercenaries of Sir Grantham and Denzel the Dornishman, asking them to continue hunting here, and said that he would come back to inspect in 2 months. After completing all these arrangements, Ian set out on the road to Duskendale. Ian could not take the people he had gathered in Westeros to Pentos, because these people were all his subordinates obtained as Sir Lucian Lannister, and he would become Ian Rivers next. On the night of departure, a system message and the settlement report of the day were sent to Ian's mailbox. The number of remaining players reached 70, and the second bounty mission was triggered. Ian did not think much about it, and directly entered the mission system to check. Bounty Mission 2, Treasure Hunt Mission Objective. The organizer placed a treasure chest in each of the 4 cities of King's Landing, Old Town, Volantis and Yedo, and players can choose a city to compete for it. Mission reward, a 2-handed Valyrian steel greatsword, 4,000 gold dragons. The reward for this mission is placed in the treasure chest. Note, players can purchase clues for this mission from the system mall, limited to 4. Valyrian steel sword plus 4,000 gold dragons? Isn't it said that the system will only provide players with extremely limited resources? After reading this mission, Ian suddenly felt bad. The bounty mission will only be open 3 times at the beginning, when the number of remaining players is 70, and when the number of remaining players is 20. In the end, only a single digit of players can obtain resources through the bounty mission. Annie explained, the vast majority of players are still in the state of unable to obtain any resources from the system, and the mission setting is in line with the setting. No, how can you let those players who didn't grab anything play by doing this? Annie did not answer this question. That was obviously not within her authority to answer, but Ian knew the answer, which was to wait for death. The reward is there, who can you blame if you don't have the ability to grab it? Ian can even guess why the planner designed the bounty to be triggered when the number of remaining players is 70. By this time, those players who agreed to form an alliance and were willing to meet have basically met. They either chose to hunt each other or chose to form an alliance as agreed, and those who did not want to meet their allies would not be able to meet their allies again. In short, the first event that would quickly trigger a conflict between players has ended, and the players have temporarily lost the basis for finding each other. If there is no external interference, there will be no more player conflicts for a long period of time, and the players will have time to develop peacefully. So the planner chose to circle 4 points on the map at this time to play the treasure hunt game. This is equivalent to opening a final round in advance. The planner has artificially created 4 meat grinders by attracting players with huge rewards. Seeing this task, Ian was the most upset. After all, he now has a huge advantage. If there is no bounty task, he is very sure to maintain the first place in the scoreboard so that he can snowball wildly and maintain his advantage over other players. But once this task is released, after the treasure hunt is over, he will have at least 4 more powerful competitors. The most difficult part of this escape game for players is the early stage failure, because players have almost no resources at the beginning, and everything they do seems extremely difficult. But once players break through the difficulties at the beginning and get the first pot of gold, they can find 10,000 ways to develop and play the game in a variety of ways. Chapter 73 Mission Clues. The most troublesome thing is that this treasure hunt game conflicts with Ian's current plan. Darren Grafson and Rawl have been waiting for Ian in Duskendale for nearly a week. If Ian spends who knows how long to go to King's Landing to search for treasure, he doesn't know how to explain to Darren what he has done. Ian can only choose King's Landing to search for treasure, because given his current location, if he chooses to go to Old Town or Volantis, even if he rushes to the nearest port by boat, it will take nearly 2 months to arrive. So should he give up? Ian hesitated for a long time and shook his head. He couldn't do it. Such a treasure chest may not be very attractive to Ian himself, but its blessing on the enemy is too terrible. For players in Westeros, a Valyrian steel giant sword is even a way to complete the second main line. If the player gets the Valyrian steel sword and takes it to Casterly Rock to present it to Tywin, Duke Tywin can pay him tens of thousands of gold dragons as a reward at one time, or even give him a small castle in the west and make him a baron. After all, Tywin has been coveting the Valyrian steel sword for most of his life. Therefore, the player who finds the treasure chest can directly complete the main line 1 and main line 2 in succession. If that person happens to kill 1 or 2 players in the process of seizing the treasure chest, Ian's position as the first on the leaderboard will instantly become unstable. If he chooses not to fight for it at this time, it means that he has given up the initiative. Must fight. Ian made a decision. Because it is not only these players in the east of Westeros who will choose the treasure chest in King's Landing as their target. Those players in Pentos who can't find a way to knock on the door of Illyrio's mansion for the time being will probably take a boat to King's Landing to try to fight for the treasure chest. Pentos is only a week's voyage from King's Landing by water, but it takes more than a month to go to Volantis, so they can only choose King's Landing. If the players in Pentos seize the treasure chest, it would undoubtedly increase the risk factor for Ian after he revealed his cards to the Dragon Queen. So even if Ian was not seeking the treasure chest reward, he had to get the box in King's Landing just to limit his opponent's acquisition of development resources. Thinking of this, Ian clicked on King's Landing in Bounty Mission 2. Then the interface was refreshed. Bounty Mission 2. Treasure Hunt Game Mission Objective. Seize the treasure chest hidden by the organizer in King's Landing. Mission Reward. A 2-handed Valyrian steel giant sword. 4,000 gold dragons. Clue. Flea Bottom. Gift. Give a clue. After selecting a city, Ian was a little surprised. King's Landing is a city with a population of 500,000. The qualifier Flea Bottom does narrow the target range a lot. Of course, this is not very intuitive for finding the treasure chest. Flea Bottom is a slum in King's Landing, the lowest area in the city, with pig pens, stables, lethal workshops, wine cellars and brothels mixed in. All the buildings there were built close to narrow unpaved alleys, so densely packed that the whole area was as complicated as a maze. Fortunately, there were still 4 clues to buy, Ian thought, and clicked on the points mall. Level 1 mall, large money bag, containing 300 silver deer. 1 point medium money bag, containing 20 gold dragons. 5 points clue, bounty mission 2, 4/4. 1 point. Seeing that a clue only cost 1 point, Ian's mood sank. If 4 points were enough to buy all the clues, the probability of other players finding the treasure chest quickly would increase significantly. Maybe the chest would be taken away by someone before he even got to King's Landing. After all, players can get 4 points by eliminating a player by themselves. Without hesitation, Ian clicked to buy. Transaction successful. Got the clue of bounty mission 2, underground. Remaining points 24 underground. Just these 2 words for a clue. Ian rolled his eyes, feeling like he was cheated of his money. King's Landing's flea pit is so big that every house may have a basement, so the first clue is almost the same as nothing. Turning his eyes back to the mall interface, Ian was surprised to find that the price of a clue had risen to 2 points. Seeing this, Ian smiled. It was the first time in his life that he was happy about the price increase of something. But he did have reason to be happy. After all, if the price of each clue would increase, it would not be so easy for other players to buy all the clues. To confirm this, Ian clicked buy again. Transaction successful. Bounty task second clue, death, obtained. Remaining points 22. This time the clue still has only 2 words, and the qualifier death is much more specific than underground. If the 2 clues are linked together, the first thing Ian thinks of is catacombs. This is a burial method of the ancients. There are family catacombs under almost every castle in the north, but for King's Landing, a city with only 300 years of history that was built after the Targaryen landing, Ian is not sure whether there are such things as catacombs at the moment. Maybe it's not an underground tomb, but simply buried in a cemetery. This can also meet the 2 clues of underground and death. Unable to get a clear enough idea from it, Ian once again looked at the updated mall interface. Clue, bounty mission 2, to quarters. 4 points, 4 points. Ian's mood was much more relaxed. This price almost stumped most players at this time. Ian suddenly remembered a sentence he had seen on the internet before. Expensive is not its disadvantage, it is your disadvantage. He felt that this sentence was inexplicably applicable here. When other players could not afford the following clues, but he could afford it, expensiveness became a shining advantage in his eyes. Clicking buy again, the 3rd clue appeared in front of Ian. Transaction successful. Got the clue of bounty mission 2, ruins. Remaining points 18. When Ian saw this word, the first thing he thought of was Dragon's Lair. It was a huge nest-like building located on the top of Rhaenys Hill in King's Landing, where the Targaryen family once raised dragons. After the destruction of the dragon pit, the subsequent rulers of the Targaryen family never demolished its ruins. To this day, the ruins of the dragon pit still stand on the top of Rhaenys Hill, facing the Cathedral of St. Bela on Visenya Hill. The dragon pit is the only building in King's Landing that Ian can think of that meets the clue of ruins, but unfortunately, the dragon pit is not in Flea Bottom. Looking at the last clue, that has risen to 8 points. Even if Ian is rich, he did not click to buy it easily. He planned to wait until he arrived in King's Landing to investigate on the spot. If he really couldn't find any clues, he would consider buying the last one. Chapter 74 King's Arrival. Before closing the points mall, Ian suddenly remembered that he failed to enter the level 2 mall last time because his total points did not exceed 10 points, so he clicked on the level 2 mall again. This time he successfully entered the preview. Level 2 mall, medium gold coin bag, contains 100 gold dragons. 5 points large gold coin bag, contains 500 gold dragons. 10 points, what the hell? In the level 1 mall, can't 5 points only buy 20 gold dragons? Ian was shocked. Although 100 gold dragons is not much for him now, the price difference still makes him a little confused. The higher the level of the system mall, the higher the discount for currency. Annie explained in Ian's mind. That's good news. Ian nodded. Although the price of 500 gold dragons for 10 points in the level 2 mall is still too expensive for him, what about the level 3 mall or even the level 4 mall later? If 10 points can buy 5,000 or even more gold dragons in the end, maybe he will really buy some gold coins in the mall. Thinking about it, Ian continued to look down. 1. In the area, self-selected A-level NPC. 10 points double arc golden heartwood longbow with quiver. 5 points, exceeds the capacity of the backpack, currently unavailable for purchase. Blessing of the Supreme Shepherd, a magic potion for external application created by the High Priest of the Supreme Shepherd Temple through secret methods, with powerful life force, can quickly heal the injuries of a dying person. Each person can only use it once. 20 points, the Supreme Shepherd? Isn't he a swindler? Ian couldn't help but cover his face. He was afraid that he was not seriously injured, but he would be killed by applying this thing. In the original book, after hearing that Daenerys was pregnant, the usurper sent a wine dealer to V's Dothrak to assassinate her. Although the assassin's action failed because he was discovered by Jorah Mormont, it also angered Khal Drogo. Khal Drogo was determined to conquer Westeros. In order to raise money to build a fleet, he led his caravans into the Lazar area to plunder. When they were fighting with another Khal's Khalas outside a Lazarin city, Khal Drogo was injured, and Daenerys asked Mirri Maz Duur, the priestess of the High Shepherd, who had just been rescued by her, to treat him. Then Drogo was killed by her. However, strictly speaking, Mirri Maz Duur's original purpose was to kill Drogo to avenge her city, so it seemed inappropriate to put the blame on the High Shepherd. Ian thought immediately. So is this thing a pit dug by the planner for the players? If the description of this thing is not a false advertisement, it is simply a prop of mythical grade, and it can even be said to be the second life of the player. But if this is some kind of Easter egg made by the planner out of some bad taste, it is not an ordinary pit. Ian did not choose to buy anything for the time being, but continued to click on the 3rd level mall. Then 2 prompt boxes popped up. Level 3 mall. Preview starts after you have 100 points, and unlock the level 2 mall. Level 2 mall unlocking conditions. Spend 10 points in the level 1 mall or directly spend 10 points to unlock. Okay, I almost forgot the setting that most players can hardly get resources from. The system. Ian covered his face. The level 2 mall requires 10 points to be spent in the level 1 mall to open it. So does the level 3 mall require 100 points to be spent in the level 2 mall? Considering the low cost effectiveness of the level 1 and level 2 malls, spending money there is basically the same as wasting points. After exiting the system interface, Ian found a place by the tree and prepared to sleep. It was then that he truly experienced the feeling of being a hedge knight for the first time. Fortunately, summer has not yet passed, and Ian dared not imagine what it would be like to sleep outdoors in the winter. After changing his plan, Ian returned to the Crossroads Inn. He cancelled the task of continuing to hunt in the hotel, and took the 2 teams of mercenaries of Sir Trickster Grantham and Dawn Denzel on the journey to King's Landing. On the way, Ian asked Denzel, who had become his new attendant, to go to Duskendale to replace Raoul, making him the new caretaker of Sir Darren Graveson, and called Raoul back to his side. It took Ian and his companions 6 days to travel from the Crossroads to King's Landing. On the evening of the 7th day, they entered the capital of the 7 kingdoms on the banks of the Blackwater River from the Gate of the Gods. Once upon a time, this place was just a forest with only a small number of fishermen living here. It was not until 300 years ago that the conqueror Aegon Targaryen landed at the mouth of the Blackwater River and changed the fate of this place. Aegon used mud and wood to build his first wooden castle, Aegon Castle, on the top of the highest hill here. After he conquered the entire territory of the 7 kingdoms, he ordered the construction of his capital here and named it King's Landing. In the years that followed, the kings of the Targaryen family expanded the city step by step, making it what Ian sees today. After entering the Gate of the Gods, Ian and his party passed through a prosperous urban area with mansions, pavilions, barns, brick warehouses, wooden inns and market stalls, taverns, cemeteries, and brothels, one after another. Passing through the wide boulevards and commercial districts, the group soon passed the Shoemaker Square. Not long after, Ian saw the marble walls of the Cathedral of St. Bela on the top of Valyria Hill, with 7 crystal towers standing in it. On the other side of the Arenas Hill, there was a huge collapsed dome ruin. Ian knew that it was the remains of the Dragon's Lair. If you go east from this intersection, you can reach Flea Bottom by crossing Silent Sister Street, but Ian does not plan to go directly to Flea Bottom. He wants to prepare a set of clothes for himself and others first. After all, Flea Bottom is a slum, and it is understandable that there are mercenaries wandering there. It is somewhat insulting to the IQ of other players for you, a noble young man, to wander around with a knight who polishes his armor to a shine. Therefore, after Ian asked Sir Trickster to take 2/3 of the troops to the Riverside Street to find a tavern, he took Keith, Roland and a few others to the west, and entered the Steel Street, where most of the blacksmiths in the city were. The person Ian was looking for lived on the top of the hill. His name was Tob Mott. He was the best blacksmith in King's Landing, and even in the whole of Westeros, at least that's what he said. Ian came to him, mainly to order a batch of plate armor disguised as ordinary mercenaries. Plate armor is a torso armor composed of iron sheets riveted on fabric. The reason why it is called plate armor is actually just a translation problem. Its essence is actually more similar to the cloth armor of the Great Celestial Empire, rather than the plate armor in its name. Ian chose plate armor for 2 main reasons. First, unlike the bucket-like structure of plate armor, the structure of plate armor can be customized into a wasp waist style. When he chooses to rivet the iron sheet inside the cloth, your opponent will not be able to judge the quality of your armor. They are likely to regard it as a low-quality armor that ordinary mercenaries can also have. Secondly, high-quality plate armor is not inferior to plate armor in terms of defense when facing less powerful enemies, and the player's early strength can be considered not so strong. Chapter 75 The Secret of Zero Negative Reviews. Following the winding paths on the Valyria Hills, Ian and his party climbed higher and higher, passing one blacksmith shop after another. Finally, they stopped in front of a huge house made of wood and plaster, with a floor high enough to overlook the narrow alley below. The 2 doors of the house were made of ebony and fishbeam wood, with a hunting picture carved on it. A pair of stone knights wearing imaginative red steel armor stood on both sides of the entrance, showing the form of a griffin and a unicorn respectively. Ian left one person outside to watch the horses, and then led the others into the gate. There was a thin maid in the main room. She first ran quickly to Ian, but when she found that Ian and others did not have familiar emblems on them, the attentiveness in her eyes quickly disappeared. "Hello, guests, what do you need?" the maid still asked enthusiastically, but there was no flattery or respect in her words. Ian could understand this completely. After all, he didn't wear the Lannister's emblem sword now, and he changed into the gorgeous clothes he bought at the beginning. This gorgeous clothes worth only 2 gold dragons might be extremely luxurious in the eyes of those mercenaries, but for this blacksmith shop, it was obviously still lacking a bit of grade. Because what Tob Mott made was not only armor, but also a work of art. According to rumors, the large white plate armor with intricate patterns of the Knight of Flowers Loras Tyrell and the green armor and golden antler helmet of Renly Baratheon were all made by this master craftsman. In addition, all the officials in King's Landing who knew the goods were frequent visitors here. "Is Mr. Mott here?" Ian asked directly. He touched several sets of finished armor displayed in the hall. Without test props, he could not specifically judge the quality of these armors. But this kind of plate armor produced in the early way, Ian was almost sure that they were all well quenched. After all, only when plate armor is mass-produced in the future, those manufacturers of inferior plate armor will adopt natural air cooling in order to reduce working hours and save costs. For handmade plate armor like this, there is no reason for blacksmiths not to make them perfect. "Mr. Mott is busy." The maid was about to perfunctorily deal with Ian, but when she looked up, she saw Ian suddenly started to work, and immediately said anxiously, "Hey, wait, sir, don't touch it." "Sorry." Ian awkwardly withdrew his hand and touched his nose. "Sir, do you need anything?" Just after the maid screamed, Master Mott couldn't sit still and walked out of the back door. He was wearing a black velvet coat with a hammer pattern embroidered on the sleeves with silver thread, and a heavy silver chain around his neck with a sapphire the size of a pigeon egg on it. I want to customize 4 pieces of plate armor with iron sheets connected to the inside and make the structure as slim as possible. Ian immediately stated his purpose. This is for himself, Roel, Kez and Bronn, and other mercenaries don't need it. No problem, sir. Mott pondered for a moment, but I must warn you first that the price of my products may be higher than you expected, but he quickly changed his mind. You can't find another person in the 7 kingdoms whose craftsmanship can be compared with mine. I can afford it. Ian replied, of course, provided that the product satisfies me. I have been selling armor here for so many years, and I have never received a bad review. Mott emphasized. That's why I came here. Ian nodded. Then let me measure your body size. By the way, do you want a full set or just a plate armor? Try to make the appearance as simple as possible. It's best to make it look like an ordinary armor, but the quality of the iron plate and the stitching process must be the best. Ian shook his head. He wanted the plate armor to reduce the possibility of exposure, so naturally he wouldn't want those accessories. Mott nodded and asked the apprentice to come and measure the size of Ian and the others. Bronn was still with Dory and the Black Falcon for the time being, but Ian deliberately brought a mercenary with a body shape very similar to his, so he also measured Bronn's size. 4 sets of plate armor are worth 10 gold dragons in total. Come and pick them up in a week. Mott said, you need to pay 1/10 of it as a deposit. I don't need you to make them into works of art, nor do I need any decorations. As long as the defensive capabilities are in place, it's fine. So do you think the working hours can be shortened? Of course it doesn't take such a long time, but you have to queue up. Mott looked at Ian strangely. First come, first served, the simplest rule. What if I want to get these plate armors within 3 days? We can study the price. Of course, Ian couldn't wait for a week, so he began to try to speed up the other party's processing speed by adding money. If the price doubles, I will let all the apprentices rush to work together, and you will get what you want the day after tomorrow afternoon. Mott didn't know why the other party was so anxious, but it would be a waste not to make money that was delivered to his door. Are you sure it can be that fast? This time it was Ian's turn to be weird. Although he was not in this business, this speed was a bit outrageous. Come to get the goods tomorrow afternoon. If you are not satisfied with the goods, I can redo them and sell them to you at the normal price. Mott said confidently. There are 2 reasons why he has the confidence to shorten the time. The first is that he is not really busy. The most urgent order in his hand will not be delivered until 1 month later. The so-called queue he mentioned is just to create a false impression of good business. The second is that this group of customers has just measured a total of 4 sets of data, 2 of which he has in stock with similar sizes, and the remaining 2 sets need to be made on the spot and can also be modified with some ready-made materials and parts. As for the final defensive effect of the things, he is not worried, because the materials he uses to make things are indeed top-notch, and the defensive ability is not that bad. Let's take a step back. If the quality of a piece of armor is really poor, after the user finds that his armor can be easily pierced, will he have a chance to come back and give a bad review? Impossible. Master Todd Mott's armor has never had a bad review. Deal. Ian was moved by Mott's confident tone. After all, the other party promised to redo it if he was not satisfied, so he agreed to Mott's conditions. Then, he asked Luo to pay 2 gold dragons as a deposit. There was no extra greeting between the 2 sides, and Ian led his men out of the blacksmith shop. Before leaving, Ian looked back, because he knew that the illegitimate son of King Robert, named Gendry, was in this blacksmith shop, but unfortunately he didn't see him today. Of course, even if he saw him, Ian would not do anything. After all, this guy's also an important supporting role in Ice and Fire, and it is hard to say whether any players have already set their sights on him. At least before finding the treasure chest, he did not intend to cause trouble. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.